Chapter 5057. The little Peng Emperor glanced at Lin Feng and saw that Lin Feng was still calm. He couldn't help but feel a little more relaxed. Maybe Lin Feng had a way to solve the crisis? The little Peng Emperor trusted Lin Feng unconditionally. However, the Feather Immortal King was too strong, so the little Peng Emperor didn't have much confidence. Just now, they had shot out so many magic arrows, and the powerful magic power fluctuations had attracted many people over. The cultivators who came over all stood in the distance and looked in that direction. That's the little Peng Emperor from the ancestral land of the beasts. I heard that he obtained a Tianshu mirror and was chased by the strong cultivators of the four major immortal sects. It seems like the little Peng Emperor managed to get rid of the strong cultivators of the four major immortal sects. However, the little Peng Emperor's luck is too bad. He managed to get rid of the strong cultivators of the four major immortal sects, but now he met the Feather Immortal King. The Feather Immortal King is indeed strong, and the cultivators around him aren't weak either. They're all strong cultivators from the four major immortal sects. The little Peng Emperor won't be able to escape this time. Who's the human cultivator with the little Peng Emperor? That guy is too unlucky. Maybe he'll be killed by King Yuxian and the others along with little Peng King. I don't know him. He doesn't seem to be from the ancient monster realm. Maybe he's the little Peng Emperor's friend. It seems like you have to make the right friends. Otherwise, you'll die miserably, just like the human cultivator. He made friends with the little Peng Emperor, but in the end, he was implicated and killed. Many cultivators started discussing. They didn't think highly of Lin Feng and the little Peng Emperor. They all thought that Lin Feng and the little Peng Emperor would die at the hands of the Feather Immortal King and the others. It was no wonder that they thought that way, because the Feather Immortal King and the others were too strong. Anyone who encountered such a situation would feel helpless. Then they would have a feeling of wanting to cry, but no tears would come out, or they would have the urge to curse. Feather Immortal King, let me deal with that guy. A cultivator with wings and 3 eyes said coldly, that cultivator. He was a 2-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan cultivator. The dual-winged 3-eyed demon wolf clan was originally a branch of the Yao clan, but this clan had long since betrayed the Yao clan. When the Heavenly Emperor supported the 4 major immortal sects, the 2-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan had already chosen to rely on the Heavenly Emperor. It was said that the higher-ups of the dual-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan believed that the Yao cultivators of the ancient Yao region were incapable of fighting against the Heavenly Court led by the Heavenly Emperor. Additionally, the Heavenly Emperor had promised them many benefits. Thus, the higher-ups of the dual-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan were unable to resist the temptation and chose to join the Heavenly Emperor. It wasn't just the dual-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan. Even some other Yao cultivators chose to join the Heavenly Emperor. However, the majority of the demon clan forces still chose to continue resisting and protecting the land left behind by their ancestors. Thus, over the long years, the 7 demon clans' ancestral lands gradually formed. The 7 demon clans' ancestral lands were now very powerful. It would not be easy for the Heavenly Emperor to destroy them. It's Mo Qianqiu of the 2-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan. His cultivation base is quite terrifying. It is said that he has cultivated to the quasi-true immortal realm. Additionally, his bloodline is very powerful. Ordinary people are no match for him. There are not many cultivators in the younger generation who can suppress him. After seeing the 2-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan's cultivator step out, a cultivator immediately spoke up. Clearly, the other party had recognized the 2-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan's cultivator. The 2-winged, 3-eyed demon wolf clan's cultivator was a very difficult character to deal with. The Little Rock King was born in the Nine Continents world. The Nine Continents world is the starting point of all the worlds. It's different from the rest. All the cultivators who come from the Nine Continents world have unimaginably powerful talents, and the Little Rock King is the same. Although he's only 200 years old, it's said that he's already at the Earth immortal or celestial immortal realm. Although Mo Qianqiu is a terrifying figure, the Little Rock King's cultivation level isn't too far away from him. Therefore, it won't be easy for him to defeat the Little Rock King. If Little Rock King wins the battle, Little Rock King will win the battle. After hearing this cultivator's words, many people fell into deep thought. The cultivators of the 9 provinces' great world were indeed extraordinary. Their talents were heaven-defying, and they could often challenge those of a higher realm. Therefore, it would not be surprising if Little Rock King could defeat Mo Qianqiu. On the other hand, Mo Qianqiu has cultivated for more than 100,000 years. In terms of talent, there might be a gap between him and the Little Rock King, but Mo Qianqiu's talent is not bad. On the contrary, he is very powerful. Moreover, there is something about Mo Qianqiu that the Little Rock King can't compare to. That is, Mo Qianqiu's accumulation is very strong. After all, he did not cultivate for so many years for nothing. It is not surprising that Mo Qianqiu can win against the Little Rock King, who has an unstable foundation. Therefore, if they really fight, I am more optimistic about Mo Qianqiu's chances. People were different from each other, and their way of thinking was obviously different as well. Therefore, everyone naturally had different viewpoints. As for Lin Feng, he was directly ignored by everyone. This was because everyone realized that Lin Feng's cultivation level was not particularly high. A battle between Mo Qianqiu and Little Rock King was not something that a cultivator like Lin Feng could participate in. Mo Qianqiu, you traitor of the demon clan. Since you want to die, I can fulfill your wish. Little Rock King looked coldly at Mo Qianqiu. He was fearless in front of Mo Qianqiu. Mo Qianqiu sneered and said, "Take out the Empyrean mirror you obtained earlier. If you don't use it, I can kill you in less than 10 moves. What a boastful fellow. Why would I need to use the Empyrean mirror to deal with you?" Little Rock King sneered and stepped forward. Swoosh! With a flash of light, a war spear appeared in Little Rock King's hand. Chapter 50-58. Little Rock King's state of being one with his spear was extremely powerful. He seemed to have transformed into a demon god. With a thrust of his spear, the heavens and earth changed color. Lin Feng stood at the side and watched the show. He believed that Little Rock King could handle this battle. Lin Feng's opponent was King Feather, who was standing in the distance. This person had indeed brought pressure to Lin Feng. However, the more pressure there was, the more excited Lin Feng felt. He felt as if his blood was about to burn. That feeling made him extremely excited. Lin Feng was looking forward to the battle with King Feather. Only by fighting with a top expert could one stimulate one's potential. And in Lin Feng's eyes, King Feather was a top expert who could stimulate his potential. But obviously, King Feather did not pay attention to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was not worthy of his attention. In his eyes, Lin Feng was very ordinary, very ordinary. Little Rock King had aroused his interest, but it was only a little interest. If Little Rock King had not obtained the legendary Empyrean mirror, King Feather would not even bother with Little Rock King. His opponents were a few top sky prides of the demon race. Divine Demon Triple Slash. Mo Qianqiu rushed over quickly. A powerful treasure had appeared in his hand. The treasure in his hand was a demonic saber. The power of the demonic saber was extremely terrifying. It contained the intent of not leaving any ghosts or gods behind. When the demonic saber slashed over, Little Rock King unleashed a spear mystique, spear piercing the heavens. Clang! Accompanied by the sound of the collision, Lin Feng's battle spear collided with the demonic saber in his opponent's hand. The power was extremely tyrannical. The powerful energy fluctuations that dissipated even cracked the surrounding void. The battle strength of these two people was quite terrifying. Spear piercing the 9 heavens. Little Rock King snorted coldly and shot out another spear. The power of the second spear was much stronger than the first spear. After the second spear attack was launched, a dense number of spear shadows suddenly formed, forming a cold light amidst the endless spear shadows. That was the cold light condensed by the war spear. When that cold light was launched, that cold light seemed to be able to penetrate the heaven and earth. 9 heavens spear technique. This spear technique had completely displayed the artistic conception of the spear technique. Mo Qianqiu's expression darkened slightly. Previously, he had looked down on Little Rock King, but after exchanging blows with him, he realized how powerful Little Rock King was. However, Mo Qianqiu was equally powerful. Mo Qianqiu gripped the devil saber with both hands and executed the saber light net. A dense net of sabers appeared in front of him. The might of the saber net was quite tyrannical. When Little Rock King's peerless spear pierced over, it was immediately blocked by the saber net. Demonic saber, 9-fold carnage. Suddenly, Mo Qianqiu snorted coldly, and his wrist shook violently. In an instant, the devil's saber shook violently. 9 layers of saber light slashed out. Each layer of saber light was stronger than the previous one. The 9 layers of saber light rapidly slashed towards Little Rock King. The speed of the 9 layers of saber light was simply too fast. Not only was it fast, but it was also very sudden. Therefore, when the 9 layers of saber light slashed towards Little Rock King immediately fell into a dangerous situation. Let's see how you'll die. Mo Qianqiu looked at the Little Rock King indifferently. In his eyes, the Little Rock King was no different from a dead man. His cold eyes were filled with self-satisfaction. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. Mo Qianqiu was indeed quite tyrannical. Little Rock King was in trouble now. However, Lin Feng didn't help Little Rock King. He felt that Little Rock King should have a way to deal with this. Moreover, Little Rock King also needed a life and death battle to sharpen his cultivation. Naturally, Lin Feng could help Little Rock King now. However, this would be extremely detrimental to Little Rock King's growth. Lin Feng was very clear about this point. Therefore, he didn't immediately help Little Rock King. At this moment, the rock wings behind Little Rock King appeared once again. The rock wings flapped rapidly like flying swords, sweeping towards Mo Qianqiu's 9 layers of saber light. Clang! 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 A series of violent collisions rang out. Little Rock King's rock wings clashed with Mo Qianqiu's saber light. Mo Qianqiu's saber light was neutralized by Little Rock King's wings. Little Rock King's wings should be one of Little Rock King's racial talents. It was similar to the dragon's breath attack that the dragon clan mastered. This was an ability passed down through the generations. It was extremely tyrannical and terrifying. It definitely couldn't be underestimated. After blocking Mo Qianqiu's 9 layers of saber light, Little Rock King's wings swept towards Mo Qianqiu. It was like a dense mass of flying swords piercing towards Mo Qianqiu. Such power definitely couldn't be underestimated. Mo Qianqiu's expression changed slightly. He didn't dare to be careless. He quickly waved the devil saber in his hand to block the pair of wings. Clang! 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 The devil saber in his hand clashed with Little Rock King's wings. Instantly, a series of violent collisions rang out. Little Rock King's wings were very special. Although they looked illusory, they could unleash the power of divine weapons. The Golden Winged Rock clan was extremely ancient. The trump card passed down through the generations was naturally extremely terrifying. While Emo Chincho was blocking Little Rock King's wing attack, Little Rock King wielded his war spear and stabbed towards Emo Chincho. This was the terrifying part of Little Rock King. When his wings attacked, his war spear could also attack his opponent. Roar! Roar! At this moment, two more heads popped out from Emo Chincho's neck. Those two heads were actually wolf heads. The two heads let out a series of furious roars. Following that, the two heads each spat out two blood-red energy balls. The two blood-red energy balls rapidly flew towards Little Rock King. The aura contained within the two balls of blood-red energy was extremely terrifying. If that attack landed on Little Pung King's body, it was conceivable that Little Pung King would be severely injured. The outcome of this battle would also be reversed in an instant, just as the two blood-red energy balls were about to land on Little Rock King's body. A golden light beam shot out from each of his eyes. The two golden light beams were extremely powerful. The two golden light beams collided with the blood-red energy balls from Emo Chincho's wolf heads, and both were annihilated. Little Rock King's war spear continued to stab towards Emo Chincho. Chapter 5059. Emo Chincho lost. Little Pung King is really powerful. Even Emo Chincho isn't his match. Looks like Emo Chincho is going to be killed by Little Pung King. No, Feather Immortal King will definitely save Emo Chincho. Many cultivators started discussing again when they saw that Emo Chincho was about to be killed by Little Pung King's spear. Little Pung King's battle prowess had indeed shocked many cultivators. Those who didn't think highly of Little Pung King before couldn't help but admire his battle prowess and talent. Cultivators from the 9 continents' great world were indeed different, fighting against cultivators of a higher level at a lower level, and the cultivators who were challenged were all top geniuses, yet they were still able to win in the end. Such means were truly extraordinary. Previously, people didn't understand the meaning of the phrase different from the cultivators from the 9 continents' great world. Now that they saw Little Pung King's battle prowess, they finally understood the meaning of the phrase. However, so what if Little Pung King won this battle? The truly terrifying figure wasn't Emo Chincho, but Feather Immortal King. Little Pung King could defeat Emo Chincho, but he definitely couldn't defeat Feather Immortal King. Immortal King, save me! Emo Chincho screamed in fear. Emo Chincho didn't expect that he would be defeated by Little Pung King. Now that he was defeated, Emo Chincho couldn't accept it. Emo Chincho was very angry. He felt that he had been humiliated. However, he had no choice but to ask Feather Immortal King for help. If he didn't ask Feather Immortal King for help, he would be killed. Impudent! Feather Immortal King looked coldly at Little Pung King. Then he attacked Little Pung King with his palm. In the void, a huge energy palm condensed. That energy palm contained an unimaginably terrifying power. When the energy palm appeared, even the void was locked down. Little Pung King was also sealed. The cultivators who were watching from afar felt that they couldn't move their bodies. Their faces were filled with fear. Feather Immortal King was actually this strong. A casual attack could create a sense of oppression that would make one feel despair. It was hard to imagine how strong Feather Immortal King was now. Little Pung King is dead. Some cultivators cried out in fear. Little Pung King was already very strong. But obviously, in the eyes of those cultivators, although Little Rock King's strength was outstanding, there was still a huge gap between him and Feather Immortal King. In front of King Feather, Little Rock King was too weak. In this battle, Little Rock King was destined to end his life in a tragic manner, just when everyone thought that Little Rock King was dead for sure. Everyone saw the human cultivator who was with Little Rock King suddenly waved his sleeve. Then, the attack that King Feather Fairy had congealed shattered instantly. Oh my God, what am I seeing? Who is that person? He easily neutralized King Feather's attack. What exactly is his cultivation base? How can he be so strong? Isn't this too heaven-defying? After all, he's only a little over 100 years old, yet he's already so strong. Could he really be able to compete with Feather Immortal King? The cultivators who were watching the show in the distance were in an uproar. King Feather Fairy. What kind of terrifying existence was that? Feather Immortal King's casual attack. It had the power to destroy the world. If the cultivator who broke King Feather's attack was an older cultivator, everyone wouldn't be so shocked. But the key point was, Lin Feng was really too young. He was much younger than Little Rock King. So young. How could he be so powerful? Previously, everyone thought that Lin Feng was just an ordinary cultivator. But now everyone knew how wrong they were. Not only were the cultivators who were watching the show in the distance shocked, even the cultivators from the 4 major immortal sects were extremely shocked. They couldn't believe that a young cultivator like Lin Feng was actually so powerful. It was truly unbelievable. King Feather revealed a surprised expression. He looked at Lin Feng and asked, "What's your name? Are you worthy of knowing?" Lin Feng replied indifferently. After hearing Lin Feng's words, the surrounding cultivators, whether it was the cultivators from the 4 major immortal sects or the cultivators who were watching the show, were in an uproar. Facing an expert like King Feather, Lin Feng actually dared to say that King Feather wasn't worthy of knowing his identity. This was completely looking down on King Feather. Everyone admitted that Lin Feng was very powerful, but he wasn't so powerful that he could look down on King Feather, right? Therefore, many people thought that Lin Feng was too arrogant and egotistical. However, these people didn't understand Lin Feng. This was Lin Feng's personality. Lin Feng had always valued his opponents psychologically, but he looked down on them verbally. As a result, it was very easy to anger the other party. If that was the case, it was very difficult for the other party to unleash their combat strength to the peak. A trace of dense killing intent appeared in King Feather's eyes. Lin Feng's contempt towards him. It angered King Feather. So, right now, King Feather only wanted to kill Lin Feng. At this time, a cultivator said, "There's no need for King Feather to make a move. Leave this brat to us. We can help King Feather kill this brat. If King Feather personally makes a move, it would dirty King Feather's hands." The person who spoke was a skinny man with an extremely feminine appearance. That man was called Luo Ziming. This person was a genius of the Immortal Beast sect. His strength was extremely tyrannical. This Luo Ziming obviously wanted to flatter King Feather, so he raised King Feather and belittled Lin Feng. Furthermore, this guy didn't want to deal with Lin Feng himself, but wanted to join forces with others to deal with Lin Feng. That's right, there's no need for King Feather to make a move. We can deal with this brat. This brat doesn't even have the qualifications to fight with King Feather. Immediately, a cultivator agreed. "King Feather, you can just rest there. We will behead that brat and give it to you." Following that, another cultivator said, these people were all flattering King Feather, mainly because King Feather was too powerful. So, they did everything they could to curry favor with King Feather. King Feather said, "I appreciate everyone's good intentions, but I haven't fought with anyone for a while. Since there's a reckless guy who dares to provoke me today, I'll take this opportunity to move around." Hearing King Feather's words, the rest of the people nodded. Luo Ziming said, "With King Feather's strength, dealing with that brat is naturally incomparably easy. We look forward to seeing King Feather abuse. Kill that reckless guy." Author's note: the amniotic fluid broke. The doctor touched the child's head. "Waiting for the bone seam. I don't know when it will be born." This is the 7th update. It's really not easy for a wife to give birth to a child. Chapter 5060. None of the cultivators from the 4 major immortal sects were optimistic about Lin Feng's chances. They had their own reasons for doubting Lin Feng's chances. After all, Feather Immortal King was so powerful that it wouldn't be easy to survive his attacks. Therefore, everyone thought that Lin Feng would definitely die in the hands of Feather Immortal King. As for the cultivators who were watching from afar, most of them thought that Lin Feng would die in the hands of Feather Immortal King. Only a few thought that Lin Feng would be able to defeat Feather Immortal King. This was because they thought that Lin Feng was so powerful at such a young age. Perhaps he was hiding some heaven-defying techniques. And those heaven-defying techniques were what Lin Feng relied on to defeat Feather Immortal King. At this moment, Mo Qianqiu retreated rapidly, wanting to return to the 4 major immortal sects camp. Little Rock King's expression was indifferent as he chased after Mo Qianqiu. The speed of the golden-winged Great Rock Race was unparalleled. Therefore, Little Rock King's speed was unbelievably fast. It was too difficult to compete with Little Rock King in terms of speed. Even Lin Feng's speed was slightly slower than Little Rock King's. Unless Lin Feng also used the Space Dao, it was impossible for him to suppress Little Rock King in terms of speed. Therefore, Little Rock King caught up with Mo Qianqiu in an instant. Little Rock King's Great Rock Wings continued to attack Mo Qianqiu. The Great Rock Wings attack contained a destructive power that shocked everyone. One could imagine that as Little Rock King's cultivation continued to increase, the Great Rock Wings attack would definitely become stronger and more heaven-defying. In the future, it would definitely become one of the most powerful attacks. Mo Qianqiu continued to block the Great Rock Wings attack with his Devil's Saber. At the same time, the 2 wolf heads continued to spit out blood-red energy balls to attack Little Rock King. However, the light beam from Little Rock King's eyes was too powerful. That golden light beam was Little Rock King's racial talent. Many powerful races had their own unique techniques that were passed down from their ancestors. The golden-winged Great Rock race had it, the Undying Realm had it, and the Sovereign Emperor race had it as well. Die! After Little Rock King suppressed Mo Qianqiu, he thrust his battle spear towards Mo Qianqiu. The previous time, Mo Qianqiu was obstructed by Feather Immortal King, hence he was unable to kill Mo Qianqiu. But now, Lin Feng and King Feather were in a standoff. The Feather Immortal King's pressure could no longer intimidate the Little Rock King. Therefore, Feather Immortal King was unable to help Mo Qianqiu. Of course, Mo Qianqiu wasn't willing to die like this. When the Little Rock King's battle spear came for him, Mo Qianqiu took out a powerful defensive treasure. That treasure was actually an 8 trigrams diagram. That treasure spun rapidly and blocked in front of Mo Qianqiu. Mo Qianqiu's face was filled with coldness. As long as this defensive treasure could block the Little Rock King's attack, he would immediately launch a counterattack. At that time, the Little Rock King might die in his hands. Thinking of this, Mo Qianqiu couldn't help but become extremely excited. However, the next moment, Mo Qianqiu felt a sharp pain in his chest. He lowered his head and saw the tip of a battle spear piercing through his chest from the back. How could this be? Mo Qianqiu roared unwillingly. He was still immersed in the beautiful fantasy of killing the Little Rock King. but in the blink of an eye, he was killed by the Little Rock King. This blow was too great. Emo Qianqiu was about to go crazy. It turned out that when Emo Qianqiu took out his defensive treasure to block the Little Rock King's attack, the Little Rock King had already activated the shifting phantom technique. This was also one of the trump cards of the Great Golden-Winged Rock Race. As the Great Golden-Winged Rock Race was extremely fast, when a cultivator of the Great Golden-Winged Rock Race used this technique, their original body would quickly disappear. What was left behind was actually an illusion. However, this illusion was exactly the same as the real body. Only when the original body appeared would others realize that it was just an illusion. When the Little Rock King used this technique, he caught Emo Qianqiu off guard. Hence, Emo Qianqiu did not understand how he was killed by the Little Rock King. The Little Rock King's right hand shook slightly, and Emo Qianqiu's body exploded. The Little Rock King grabbed Emo Qianqiu's storage ring. Then, he kept Emo Qianqiu's storage ring. That was his spoils of war. Little Rock King, after I kill this brat, I'll turn you into ashes. The Feather Immortal King looked at the Little Rock King indifferently. No matter what, Emo Qianqiu was also the Feather Immortal King's follower. Now, he was killed by the Little Rock King. Emo Qianqiu was naturally furious. Hence, his killing intent towards the Little Rock King was very strong. Of course, Emo Qianqiu knew that if he wanted to kill the Little Rock King, he had to get rid of Lin Feng first. In the Feather Immortal King's eyes, the Little Rock King was nothing. He could not pose any threat to him. As for Lin Feng, actually, the Feather Immortal King did not care about him. Even though Lin Feng had easily blocked his attack, Lin Feng didn't care. But so what? The Feather Immortal King was extremely confident in his own fighting strength. He believed that if he were to attack, killing Lin Feng would not be a difficult thing. The Little Rock King only laughed coldly and did not reply to the Feather Immortal King. At this moment, the Feather Immortal King charged towards Lin Feng. "Brat, I'll let you have a taste of my sacred art." The Feather Immortal King's voice was indifferent. His hands formed various mysterious seals as a powerful attack was prepared. Immortal King descends. The Feather Immortal King's cold voice rang out. As his voice fell, endless immortal qi rolled in the 9 heavens. Within the immortal qi, a powerful living being appeared. That powerful living being was surrounded by endless immortal qi. His aura was noble and otherworldly. Every movement of his seemed to contain the great Tao of heaven and earth. That powerful living being, it was the ancient immortal king that the Feather Immortal King had summoned. The Immortal King has appeared. Did the Feather Immortal King use his Immortal King body? Immediately, some cultivators exclaimed. Many people felt an almost suffocating pressure from the Immortal King. That Immortal King was too powerful. Hence, many cultivators had no choice but to retreat quickly. This was because they were worried that they would die in the battle if they were too close. In fact, the cultivators' worries were not without reason. Immortal King slash. Suddenly, the Immortal King spoke. He stood in the 9 heavens and waved his hand gently at Lin Feng. In an instant, billions of sword qi were like the Milky Way. All of them slashed towards Lin Feng. The void collapsed as if doomsday had arrived. Chapter 5061. Many people were shocked, as expected of the Feather Immortal King's attack. They put themselves in his shoes. If they were to suffer such an attack, many cultivators felt that they would definitely die. Everyone looked at Lin Feng. They were also thinking. They didn't know if Lin Feng would be able to withstand the Feather Immortal King's attack. At this time, many runes appeared around Lin Feng's body. These runes, they were the magical energy immunity runes. Lin Feng's great immunity technique could make him immune to all kinds of attacks. This was also a peerless technique. Its power was incomparably tyrannical. When the billions of sword qi slashed over, in the blink of an eye, Lin Feng was surrounded by an endless amount of sword qi, but nothing happened to him. Those sword qi were all neutralized by Lin Feng's magical energy immunity runes. So strong. After seeing this scene, many people couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Then, those cultivators became excited, because the stronger Lin Feng was, the more tragic this battle would be, and they were all here to watch the show. Naturally, they weren't afraid of things getting out of hand. The more lively it was, the more interesting it would be. Are you trying to scratch my itch? Lin Feng sneered as he walked towards the Feather Immortal King. Many people couldn't help but mutter. Lin Feng was still as arrogant as ever. The Feather Immortal King's attack was so strong, but he actually asked if it was scratching his itch. The Feather Immortal King's expression was gloomy. He said coldly, "This is just the beginning. Why are you in such a hurry? You don't have to rush to your death, because I will slowly play you to death." Lin Feng retorted, "I'm not in a hurry to die. I'm in a hurry to send you off. You don't know the meaning of death." The Feather Immortal King's gaze was gloomy. In terms of arguing, he was naturally not a match for Lin Feng. Therefore, the Feather Immortal King didn't continue arguing with Lin Feng. The Feather Immortal King continued to communicate with the Immortal King's clone floating in the sky. Immortal extermination. The Immortal King spoke again. Next, the Immortal King unleashed a new attack. The Immortal King waved his hand. Suddenly, an endless amount of destructive power descended from the sky. That kind of destructive power was very special, and it seemed to contain the power to destroy the world. Therefore, that kind of destructive power was many times stronger than ordinary destructive power. Immortal annihilation was the origin of the immortal annihilation technique. Lin Feng's expression was ice cold in the face of this powerful technique. Hope. Lin Feng's cold voice rang out. He continued to step forward. Then, he threw a punch at the destructive power that was pouring down from the 9 heavens. Immortals destroying the world represented destruction, death, and despair. What Lin Feng used was the Great Hope technique, recorded in the 3,000 Great Ways. His secret technique, on the other hand, gave others hope. These were two completely opposite forces. It was like the contrast between darkness and light. Bang! Along with the sound of violent collisions, Lin Feng punched out at the surging power of destruction. Justice would eventually triumph over evil. Light would dispel darkness. Therefore, when Lin Feng's fist was about to explode, his fist of hope, it broke the Immortal King's immortal annihilation technique. That guy is so powerful. He has already broken 2 of the Feather Immortal King's attacks. Some cultivators exclaimed in surprise. Everyone knew how powerful the Feather Immortal King was. But now, the combat power that Lin Feng displayed was actually suppressing the Feather Immortal King. Everyone's inner world couldn't help but be set off huge waves. Many people couldn't help but have a thought in their minds. Could it be that young cultivator? Did he really have the strength to defeat the Feather Immortal King? Many cultivators who were originally full of confidence in the Feather Immortal King began to waver at this moment. Meteor fire. Suddenly, the Immortal King let out a low voice again. After his voice died down, above the 9 heavens, fire clouds rolled. Everyone looked up and saw that the fire clouds above the 9 heavens seemed to cover the sky and the sun. Waves of terrifying pressure spread out from the fire clouds. Seeing this scene, many people were shocked. Obviously, the Immortal King Yao, summoned by the Feather Immortal King, had used some top-notch technique. The name of that top-notch technique should be meteor fire. But at the moment, everyone only knew of its name. Everyone didn't know what was so special about that top-notch technique. But in the next moment, they knew. In the fire clouds, countless meteors fell from the sky. Those meteorites were all burning fiercely. Every burning meteorite seemed to have fallen from the 9 heavens. Meteorite attack? Such an attack isn't rare. It shouldn't be able to cause any harm to that young master, right? After seeing the falling meteorites, a cultivator immediately said, summoning meteorites to attack wasn't rare. It could even be said to be rather common. Of course, the various divine abilities were also very different. Some were powerful, some were weak. For example, the meteorites that the immortal king summoned. It was terrifying enough, but everyone knew that when one's combat power reached the level of Lin Feng and the Feather Immortal King, the attacks that were released were powerful, but it wasn't easy to injure the opponent, because cultivators at their level all had many powerful methods. Facing these powerful attacks, they could naturally find a way to resist. In order to injure the opponent, not only did the attack have to be powerful, it also had to be special. It's not an ordinary meteorite attack. The meteor fire divine ability has an additional effect. This additional effect is called ignition. This ability is very terrifying because once it happens, the power of the meteor fire divine ability will increase by more than 10 times. It's said that it can reach a maximum of 30 times, a cultivator said at this moment. This cultivator was more familiar with the meteor fire divine ability. Now that he said the terrifying part of the meteor fire divine ability, many people couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. If what this cultivator said was true, then it was too terrifying. It was simply shocking. At this moment, Lin Feng took out a huge golden light shield. It was the Vajra Great Light Shield that was condensed from the supreme secret technique passed down in Buddhism. The defensive power of the Vajra Great Light Shield was extremely extraordinary. Bang, bang, bang. Along with the sound of violent collisions, one after another, came the sound of violent collisions. The huge flaming meteorites ruthlessly smashed onto the Vajra Great Light Shield. The power of the Vajra Great Light Shield was indeed tyrannical. The meteorites that smashed down were not able to destroy the Vajra Great Light Shield. After seeing this scene, many people couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Lin Feng's methods were really powerful. However, at this moment, the densely packed flaming meteorites formed a special connection. When that connection was formed, the flames immediately burned dozens of times more fiercely. Ignition effect. Those flaming meteorites had successfully activated the ignition effect. The power of those flaming meteorites had increased by dozens of times. Countless flaming meteorites instantly drowned Lin Feng. Chapter 5062. After seeing the flames that blotted out the sky, many people couldn't help but show expressions of horror on their faces. Not to mention enduring the attack of the flaming meteors. Everyone had a feeling that if they were enveloped by those flames, they would be burned to ashes. The situation in front of them was too terrifying. This time, I'm afraid that Brat can only die, right? At this moment, someone spoke up. Right now, Lin Feng had been completely engulfed by the ignited flames and flaming meteors. There was no trace of Lin Feng at all. Therefore, some cultivators felt that Lin Feng was definitely going to die. There were many cultivators who had this thought. The effect of the ignition is too terrifying. The power instantly increased by dozens of times. If one is enveloped by such an attack, it would be too despairing. That's right. Although that young master of the human clan is very powerful, now that he has been engulfed by the ignited meteor fire, he will definitely be attacked by the meteor fire. This time, he will definitely not be able to escape. Many cultivators began to discuss spiritedly They were already extremely pessimistic about Lin Feng. The current situation was indeed extremely disadvantageous for Lin Feng. It was no wonder that those cultivators did not think highly of Lin Feng. Some of the cultivators who originally thought highly of Lin Feng could not help but frown at this moment. The situation in front of them indeed made them feel extremely desperate. Therefore, even they felt that Lin Feng would probably die under the attack of the meteor fire. Little Rock King's expression also became extremely unsightly. He was naturally incomparably confident in Lin Feng. However, the Feather Immortal King's attack was too powerful. Even if he was very confident in Lin Feng, he still couldn't help but worry about Lin Feng's safety. Boom, boom, boom. More and more flaming meteors fell. The attacks of the flaming meteors became more and more concentrated and violent. The attacks of the flaming meteors were simply too terrifying. Many people only felt the power of the flaming meteors from afar, and their faces had already turned extremely pale. However, as time passed, the power of the flaming meteors began to gradually decrease. In the end, the flaming meteors' attack dissipated. When the energy dissipated, everyone discovered Lin Feng actually disappeared without a trace. Could it be that his soul has already dissipated? Not even his corpse remains. At this time, a cultivator spoke up. Actually, the possibility of this happening was quite high, because the attack just now was so terrifying, not to mention a body of flesh and blood. Anything that was subjected to such a terrifying attack could be completely destroyed. He must have turned into ashes. What a pity! If he had lived, who knows what kind of terrifying existence he would have become in the future. Someone couldn't help but sigh. Many cultivators were whispering to each other about Lin Feng's death. Some felt sorry for him. Some took pleasure in his misfortune. Some did not care. There were all kinds of people. Look, at this time, a cultivator pointed at the area where Feather Immortal King was and exclaimed. Everyone looked over. Then, everyone's eyes couldn't help but widen. Everyone's face could not help showing a shocked expression, because they saw Lin Feng silently appear behind Feather Immortal King. Originally, everyone thought that Lin Feng had died under Feather Immortal King's attack. Only now did they realize that Lin Feng was completely fine. Moreover, he had concealed himself from everyone's perception and appeared behind Feather Immortal King. Many people could not help but exclaim. Only now did they realize that they had underestimated Lin Feng's ability. How could an expert who had cultivated to such a level die so easily? He must have a very deep understanding of the Tao of space and the Tao of void. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to hide from everyone's perception. Apart from that, his defensive power must be incomparably strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to block the meteor's attack. I'm guessing that he found an opportunity to leave when the meteor completely landed. Then, he quietly appeared behind Feather Immortal King, said a cultivator. This cultivator's words seemed to have struck a chord in everyone's heart. Indeed, it was as this cultivator had said. Lin Feng was able to escape from the meteor's attack and appear behind Feather Immortal King because he had mastered so many powerful techniques. Lin Feng directly activated the six-fold Dracophant arm and attacked Feather Immortal King. Feather Immortal King's meteor was indeed incomparably terrifying. Moreover, Lin Feng knew that Feather Immortal King's ultimate technique should only be one of his many ultimate techniques. It could not even be considered the strongest one. Feather Immortal King's strength could be seen from this point. It was not easy to deal with a terrifying existence like Feather Immortal King. Lin Feng felt that close combat would be a good choice. Lin Feng's physical body was tyrannical. However, this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that his archaic Dracophant art was extremely terrifying. the archaic Dracophant art was suitable for close combat. For example, the six-fold Dracophant arm in the archaic Dracophant art was simply a heaven-defying killing weapon. It was also one of Lin Feng's favorite techniques in close combat. Feather Immortal King's senses were also very powerful. When Lin Feng appeared behind him and attacked him, Lin Feng's expression changed drastically. Feather Immortal King had already sensed it. Feather Immortal King's attack was extremely fast. He turned around and punched towards Lin Feng. The power of this punch was quite tyrannical. However, in the face of Lin Feng's six-fold Dracophant arm, it was still not enough. Feather Immortal King was blown away by Lin Feng's punch. This punch had a great impact on Feather Immortal King. His Dharma energy was in a mess. Therefore, the Immortal King's incarnation in the sky directly dissipated. Feather Immortal King, you're too weak compared to me. Lin Feng looked indifferent as he continued walking towards Feather Immortal King. Lin Feng had already locked onto Feather Immortal King. Now, it was extremely difficult for Feather Immortal King to get rid of Lin Feng. Lin Feng arrived in front of Feather Immortal King. He swung his right arm again and punched towards Feather Immortal King. Brat, you're too arrogant. If you hadn't ambushed me, would I have been blown away? A human cultivator dares to compete with me in terms of physical strength? How ridiculous. Now, I'll let you know that your physical body is pitifully weak in front of me. Feather Immortal King looked at Lin Feng indifferently. He was obviously not convinced that Lin Feng had forced him to retreat. Besides, he called Lin Feng's attack a sneak attack. He looked down on Lin Feng even more. Feather Immortal King was indeed very strong, but this guy was too petty. Lin Feng had used the Space Dao to attack him from behind. That was a top-level Great Dao, but this guy called it a sneak attack. A guy who didn't admit that others were strong was destined to be pitiful. No matter how strong Feather Immortal King was, he couldn't become a Zun cultivator because of his state of mind. Chapter 5063. Feather Immortal King wanted to prove himself, so he didn't hesitate to attack Lin Feng. Feather Immortal King's body was extremely strong, which was why he was so confident. Many golden scales appeared on Feather Immortal King's body. No one knew what race he was from, but it was strange to see so many scales on his body. When the scales appeared, Feather Immortal King's body became stronger. It's the Golden Scale armor. Feather Immortal King is from the Golden Scale clan. When the Golden Scale armor appears, his body will reach the peak. It's said that even immortal weapons can't break through the defense of the Golden Scale armor. A cultivator said when he saw the golden scales on Feather Immortal King's body, the defense of the Golden Scale armor is so strong. A cultivator said in surprise, "That's right. That's why the cultivators of the Golden Scale race have an unparalleled physical body. It's mainly because of the special golden scales that appear on the surface of their bodies. Those golden scales can form a protective barrier for the cultivators of the Golden Scale race. Apart from that, they can also strengthen the cultivators of the Golden Scale race. That young human cultivator's physical body seems to be extremely strong, but it's not enough against the Feather Immortal King," another cultivator said. Everyone knows that the human cultivator's body is weak, but that human cultivator's body is so strong. It completely changed everyone's impression of the human cultivator's weak body. He's someone who can create miracles. Besides, he chose to fight against Feather Immortal King because he's very confident in his body. "That's why I think that young human cultivator is better," another cultivator said. He felt that Lin Feng could suppress Feather Immortal King. Bang! At that moment, Lin Feng and Feather Immortal King's fists collided. The dull sound of the collision was like two immortal mountains crashing into each other. The collision between Lin Feng and Feather Immortal King was quite shocking. What surprised Lin Feng was that Feather Immortal King was able to block his punch. However, Lin Feng sneered. That punch just now was just the beginning. Lin Feng continued to use the six-fold Dracophan arm to attack Feather Immortal King. Feather Immortal King's face turned ugly. Feather Immortal King thought that he would be able to suppress Lin Feng after activating the Golden Scale armor. However, that wasn't the case. He activated the Golden Scale armor. But not only did he fail to suppress Lin Feng, he was suppressed by Lin Feng. On the surface, he didn't lose anything. However, he knew that his body's body was severely damaged by Lin Feng's punch. This impact caused King Feather Immortal to feel extreme pain. Feather Immortal King was to be angry because, surprisingly, he was at a disadvantage against Lin Feng's physical strength. The Golden Scale clan had a strong body. The human race had a weak physical body. The cultivators of the Golden Scale tribe, who had strong physical bodies, were actually being suppressed by the human cultivators who had weak physical bodies. How could the arrogant Feather Immortal King accept such a thing? Therefore, Feather Immortal King was incomparably furious. His eyes were filled with killing intent. He wanted to tear Lin Feng into pieces. However, no matter how aggrieved and angry he was, he still had to face reality. Feather Immortal King knew where his advantage was. His advantage was that his realm was high and his mana was strong. This was what he should rely on. Although Lin Feng was also very strong, Feather Immortal King felt that Lin Feng's realm wasn't too high. Therefore, in terms of mana, Lin Feng was at a disadvantage. Feather Immortal King, who understood this, planned to distance himself from Lin Feng. Then, he attacked Lin Feng again. But Lin Feng didn't plan to give Feather Immortal King this chance. Perhaps some people felt that winning a life and death battle was very important. But Lin Feng didn't have this kind of hobby. As long as he could win a life and death battle, it didn't matter if he won beautifully or not. Surviving was the most important thing. A physical battle was the method that Lin Feng was most confident in, although it might not be as dazzling as a sacred art battle. But as long as he could kill the other party, the process wasn't important. What was important was the result. Facing Lin Feng, who was following closely behind, Feather Immortal King had no choice but to continue the physical battle with Lin Feng. Bang! 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 Both sides collided with each other again and again. 3 consecutive punches. The golden scale that appeared on Feather Immortal King's arm exploded. Obviously, Feather Immortal King's body could no longer withstand Lin Feng's powerful attacks. Under Lin Feng's attack, Feather Immortal King suffered serious injuries. Damn it! Feather Immortal King's face instantly became extremely gloomy. Feather Immortal King had fought with others many times in the past, but he had never lost. But now, he had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Lin Feng. This made Feather Immortal King go crazy. When the surrounding cultivators saw that Feather Immortal King was injured by Lin Feng, they couldn't help but reveal extremely shocked expressions. Those cultivators, who had previously thought highly of Feather Immortal King, were even more dumbfounded. Feather Immortal King's tyrannical body was actually injured by Lin Feng. Just how tyrannical was Lin Feng's body? Lin Feng continued to attack Feather Immortal King. As the saying goes, beat a drowning dog. This logic, Lin Feng naturally understood. Take advantage of his illness. Take his life. Miss this village. There won't be this shop. Lin Feng wanted to seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to kill Feather Immortal King. An even more tyrannical power erupted. Feather Immortal King felt a suffocating pressure. Lin Feng's attack, it had already threatened his life. Even Lin Feng thought that he could kill Feather Immortal King. However, just as Lin Feng's terrifying attack was about to hit Feather Immortal King's body, Feather Immortal King's body actually shattered into pieces. Then, Feather Immortal King's body flew in all directions. Lin Feng's punch. It directly hit the air. Feather Immortal King's shattered body completely reassembled hundreds of meters away. Lin Feng was a little dumbfounded. Just now, what kind of technique did Feather Immortal King use? It was actually so strange. Lin Feng originally thought that he could kill Feather Immortal King. However, Feather Immortal King used such a strange method to dodge his attack, which made Lin Feng feel rather helpless. However, Lin Feng would not feel discouraged because of this. Fragmentation technique. This is a top-notch secret technique that Feather Immortal King has mastered. Rumor has it that even if his body is torn into pieces, he won't die. Previously, I always thought that this secret technique was a little exaggerated. Now that I see Feather Immortal King using this secret technique, I know that those rumors were not exaggerated at all. After seeing Feather Immortal King use this powerful secret technique, a cultivator immediately spoke up. The other cultivators also had a look of surprise on their faces because the secret technique that Feather Immortal King used was indeed too strange. Chapter 5064. King Yu Xian looked at Lin Feng icily after he finished reforming his physical body. His voice was gloomy as he said, "Why is your physical body so unbelievably strong? You are a human cultivator. The fleshly body of a human cultivator is extremely weak compared to the fleshly bodies of other races. Even after postnatal cultivation, the fleshly body of a human is still extremely weak. This is a congenital deficiency. No matter how much effort you put in, it should not be possible to improve your fleshly body to this extent. Just what did you experience to make your fleshly body so strong?" Lin Feng sneered. "You really think too highly of yourself. Don't you know that the human race is the race with the greatest learning and comprehension ability? The other races might have a bottleneck in their cultivation of the grand Tao and the physical body, but human cultivators don't have such a bottleneck. As long as they grasp the correct method, they can create endless possibilities. No other race can compare to human cultivators. What shameless boasting. The human race is just a lowly race," Feather Immortal King retorted as soon as Lin Feng finished speaking. Clearly, he didn't agree with Lin Feng's words. In the eyes of many races, the human race was just a lowly race. Feather Immortal King thought the same. They always wanted to find a sense of superiority in comparison. They wanted to prove that their race was a noble race. Lin Feng sneered. "They say that the ignorant are fearless. This phrase is very suitable for you. You're not only ignorant, but you're also very self-righteous. Looking at you now, I suddenly thought of a word to describe you. It's called a clown. What do you think of my description?" Feather Immortal King's eyes became even colder after hearing Lin Feng's mockery. He said, "I'll show you how strong I am soon." King Yu Xian made some hand seals, and a pair of wings appeared on his back. King Yu Xian's name had the word Yu in it. Lin Feng initially thought it was King Yu Xian's family name, but now it seemed like it wasn't King Yu Xian's family name. Maybe it was King Yu Xian's family name, but now it seemed like it wasn't King Yu Xian's family name. Whoosh whoosh. Feather Immortal King's wings fluttered rapidly, following Feather Immortal King's wings. Suddenly, an illusory world appeared behind Feather Immortal King. Terrifying creatures came out of that illusory world one after another. Those creatures all had wings on their backs and swords in their hands. They were like immortal gods, extremely fast. They surrounded Lin Feng and attacked him. It's the Feather Immortal technique. It's a peerless technique. Rumor has it that the Feather Immortal King passed it down from the Feather Immortal King. It's still very impressive. That skill is indeed powerful. Feather Immortal King's energy is extremely strong. He can unleash the full power of that skill. It's extremely difficult to defend against such a powerful attack. I wonder if that young master of the human race can defend against Feather Immortal King's attack. Many spectators started discussing. They were very curious to see if Lin Feng could block Feather Immortal King's attack. Lin Feng had shown how strong he was and even injured Feather Immortal King. However, Lin Feng had used his physical strength to injure Feather Immortal King, not his Dharma energy or divine techniques. Even if two people at the same level cultivated for 100,000 years and one for 1,000,000 years, the cultivator who had cultivated for 1,000,000 years would have accumulated more Dharma energy. Lin Feng was very strong, but many people thought that Lin Feng was still too young. He couldn't compare to Feather Immortal King in terms of Dharma energy. That was why Lin Feng chose to use physical body arts against Feather Immortal King. What did that mean? It meant that Lin Feng wasn't confident in his Dharma energy and divine techniques. That was why he used his physical body arts to suppress Feather Immortal King's physical body. He even wanted to kill Feather Immortal King with his physical body arts. Many cultivators had the same thought. Lin Feng smiled coldly when he saw the terrifying creatures flying towards him. He started walking in the sky. 9 holy emperors of the human race appeared behind Lin Feng. Human Emperor, world suppressing. Lin Feng's voice reverberated in the sky. He was using the imperial scriptures of the human race. 9 human emperors shook the world. How powerful and terrifying was that? 9 human emperors stepped forward. In a flash, the terrifying creatures that were flying towards Lin Feng exploded one after another. It's the legendary imperial scriptures of the human race. Someone exclaimed. It seemed like there was no lack of knowledgeable people in this world. Even the imperial scriptures of the human race had been seen through. The 9 human emperors rushed towards Feather Immortal King. Feather Immortal King's face turned ugly when he sensed the power of the 9 human emperors. They were absolutely terrifying. They had the power to destroy the world. Feather Immortal King originally wanted to use Dharma energy and divine techniques to suppress Lin Feng, but he didn't think that it would work. Of course, Feather Immortal King's expression quickly returned to normal because he also had many powerful divine techniques. Facing the attacks of the 9 human emperors, Feather Immortal King's body emitted waves of immortal light. The immortal light quickly condensed into powerful creatures. Upon closer inspection, those creatures were actually ancient immortal kings. This was the special ability of the Immortal King physique. The Immortal King physique was incomparably heaven-defying. It could always display some extraordinary abilities. When the Immortal King physique was released, the Immortal King physique would be incomparably terrifying. Now, the Immortal King physique was once again terrifying. Feather Immortal King had condensed too many Immortal King physiques. There were so many of them that no one knew how many there were. Every single Immortal King physique had terrifying combat strength. So many Immortal King physiques rushed towards the 9 human emperors summoned by Lin Feng. The two sides engaged in an intense battle in the sky. The 9 human emperors summoned by Lin Feng couldn't do anything to the Immortal King physiques, but the Immortal King physiques summoned by Feather Immortal King couldn't do anything to the 9 human emperors summoned by Lin Feng. In the end, Lin Feng's 9 human emperors and the many Immortal King physiques summoned by Feather Immortal King were annihilated. Die, kid. At this moment, Feather Immortal King condensed a new attack. Feather Immortal King turned into a dazzling immortal light. That immortal light finally condensed into an immortal sword. That immortal sword was called the Sword of Heaven Opening. When the sword slashed out, it was as if it could split the heaven and earth. Chapter 5065. The power of the heaven-opening sword was incomparably terrifying. It tore the void apart with ease. This kind of power was truly frightening. A cultivator exclaimed, "A human can turn into an immortal sword and slay ghosts and gods with a single slash. The Feather Immortal King's ultimate technique is too powerful. I heard that this ultimate technique can slice through the void and destroy the heavens and the underworld. Now that the Feather Immortal King has used this ultimate technique, I wonder if that young genius from the human race will be able to withstand this terrifying attack." Hearing this, the rest of the people's expressions changed. This attack was truly too terrifying. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to unleash such a powerful attack. Perhaps only a peerless genius like the Feather Immortal King would be able to unleash such a terrifying attack. Everyone held their breaths and looked at Lin Feng. Everyone couldn't help but have the same thought. How could Lin Feng block such a powerful attack from the Feather Immortal King? It was truly too difficult to block such a powerful attack. Interesting. At this moment, Lin Feng spoke. When everyone heard Lin Feng's words, they couldn't help but be stunned. Such a powerful attack was only interesting in Lin Feng's eyes. Wasn't Lin Feng underestimating the Feather Immortal King's attack too much? The Feather Immortal King sneered. "When you die under my attack later, you'll know how foolish your current actions are." Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He didn't care about the Feather Immortal King anymore. Instead, he tried to activate the Blade of God in his dantian. Buzz. Accompanied by a violent vibration, a violent energy wave swept across the world. Lin Feng took out the Blade of God. Then it quickly swept towards the heaven-opening sword that the Feather Immortal King had turned into. When the Blade of God was in midair, it had already formed a connection with the ancient weapon, the Blade of God. A powerful energy passed through the boundless void and crossed the distance of space, quickly transmitting into this world. Then, all of that energy was absorbed by the Blade of Dominion, the power of the Blade of God. His strength had increased tremendously. The Sovereign's Blade was an ability that Lin Feng had obtained when his Sovereign Emperor's blood had awakened to a deeper level. Lin Feng knew exactly how powerful this ability was. Once it connected with the ancient weapon, its power would increase exponentially. Clang! This was accompanied by the clanging sound of collision. The heaven-opening sword formed by Feather Immortal King clashed violently with the Blade of Domination summoned by Lin Feng. Following the violent collision, the surrounding space began to crack. Everyone was shocked when they saw this because the destruction caused by the battle between the two sides was just too terrifying. It's not surprising that the Feather Immortal King is so powerful. After all, the Feather Immortal King has been famous for a long time. He even went to the heaven realm to cultivate for many years. However, that young human cultivator is also so powerful. This is unbelievable. No matter what kind of move the Feather Immortal King uses, he seems to have a way to deal with it. It's really unbelievable. At this moment, a cultivator couldn't help but sigh. Previously, many cultivators felt that when the two sides fought with magic power and divine abilities, as long as the Feather Immortal King used some of his trump cards. For example, the Feather Immortal King had just transformed into the heaven-opening sword. Lin Feng was definitely not a match for the Feather Immortal King, but now no one thought so anymore. The battle prowess that Lin Feng had displayed had deeply shocked everyone. If Lin Feng was given time, what was the Feather Immortal King? This was how the world was. There would never be a lack of top-notch geniuses. There was always a mountain higher than the other. This was what it meant. Of course, everyone knew that what Lin Feng lacked the most now was time. The heavens wouldn't give him time to make up for the fact that he had only cultivated for a short period of time. Now that the battle was incomparably intense, it was hard to say what the outcome of the battle would be. Clang, clang, clang. The heaven-opening sword formed by the feather immortal king clashed with the blade of God that Lin Feng had summoned. The surrounding void was shattering more and more, after more than 10 consecutive collisions. Suddenly, the heaven-opening sword formed by the feather immortal king split into two. One of the heaven-opening sword slashed towards the blade of God. The other heaven-opening sword quickly attacked Lin Feng. The heaven-opening sword that was slashing towards the blade of God immediately stalled the blade of God. The other heaven-opening sword had already arrived in front of Lin Feng and slashed towards him. It wanted to split Lin Feng into two. What kind of technique is this? After seeing this, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. They didn't understand what was going on. The two heaven-opening swords were incomparably powerful. Therefore, the two heaven-opening swords were the real heaven-opening swords. One was real, and the other was fake. I know, this technique can actually transform into two heaven-opening swords. The two heaven-opening swords have the same power. Earlier on, the Feather Immortal King had only used one heaven-opening sword to deal with the young master's attacks. It was to confuse him and make him let down his guard. Once he let down his guard, the Feather Immortal King would immediately use the other heaven-opening sword to deal with him. At this moment, a cultivator said. After hearing this cultivator's words, the others couldn't help but nod their heads. These words, it was very reasonable. At this moment, the second heaven-opening sword had already arrived in front of Lin Feng. This heaven-opening sword had appeared so suddenly that Lin Feng couldn't use any other powerful techniques to deal with it. Lin Feng couldn't help but sigh. An expert like the Feather Immortal King was indeed terrifying. One really couldn't underestimate a genius like him. Otherwise, it would be a very difficult matter. Of course, Lin Feng didn't underestimate the Feather Immortal King. Although his words were somewhat provocative and disdainful, it was just a method to infuriate the Feather Immortal King. Facing the fatal attack of the Feather Immortal King, Lin Feng used the heaven patching technique. He wanted to borrow another chance from the heavens. When Lin Feng used the heaven patching technique, shwa, there was a flash of light. Lin Feng disappeared without a trace. The Feather Immortal King's attack. Instead, his attack landed in the air. He dodged it. Many cultivators exclaimed. Everyone thought that Lin Feng wouldn't be able to dodge the attack of the Feather Immortal King. However, Lin Feng dodged it. Lin Feng reappeared 100 meters away. When he reappeared, Lin Feng walked towards the heaven-opening sword that the Feather Immortal King had transformed into. As Lin Feng walked, he chanted an incantation. The great Tao of curses, please descend upon me with the power of curses. I will use the power of curses to defeat my enemies. Chapter 5066. When Lin Feng chanted the incantation, a large amount of curse power gushed out from the cursed clay figurine. The curse power all poured into Lin Feng's body. Originally, Lin Feng's success rate of casting the great curse art was not very high. Perhaps he could only succeed once after casting it dozens of times. The success rate of casting the great curse art had always been relatively low. No matter who cast the great curse art, the success rate was not high. As for those cultivators who had a higher success rate of casting the great curse art, they often had some special methods. For example, the Cursed Doll's success rate of casting the great curse art was extremely high. The reason was that the Cursed Doll had some special methods, so it could greatly increase the success rate of casting the great curse art. Now that Lin Feng had mastered the method of molding clay figurines and stone statues, it could be considered a special method. When Lin Feng borrowed the curse power from the clay figurine and stone statues, the success rate of casting the great curse art would greatly increase. If he cast it now, the success rate would be more than 80%. After Lin Feng's voice fell, the invisible curse power immediately descended. Others might not be able to sense the existence of this curse power, but Lin Feng could. This curse power had a close connection with Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng could not help but be happy. It seemed that the great curse art was successful. He tried to control the curse power to deal with Feather Immortal King. The powerful curse power surged toward the heaven-opening sword that Feather Immortal King had turned into. Bang! The invisible curse power fiercely collided with the heaven-opening sword, accompanied by a violent collision sound. The heaven-opening sword was blasted away. In midair, the heaven-opening sword turned into Feather Immortal King's body. As for the other heaven-opening sword, it couldn't hold on any longer and shattered. It seemed like there was a difference between the two heaven-opening swords. Even though their strength was almost the same, only one of them could transform into the true body of Feather Immortal King. The other heaven-opening sword shattered when Feather Immortal King's body could no longer maintain the heaven-opening sword form, just like the current situation. After Feather Immortal King was beaten back to his original form by Lin Feng, his expression was extremely ugly. His perception was very strong. He could sense an extremely strange and powerful force rapidly approaching him. That strange and powerful force made his hair stand on end. Therefore, Feather Immortal King chose to quickly retreat, wanting to get rid of that invisible and terrifying force. However, he could not get rid of Lin Feng's curse power. Puff! The curse power that Feather Immortal King's body was pierced through Feather Immortal King's body. Feather Immortal King's body retreated, and his face became extremely pale. Feather Immortal King is severely injured Immortal King's body. After seeing Feather Immortal King's chest being pierced through, a cultivator immediately exclaimed, "Feather Immortal King's injuries were too severe. Such an injury would be fatal for an ordinary person." Feather Immortal King's cultivation was very strong, and his vitality was vigorous. Although his chest was pierced through, it was not fatal. However, even if it was not fatal, the injury was still very serious. It would affect Feather Immortal King's battle strength. In fact, Feather Immortal King was already injured by Lin Feng when he was fighting against Lin Feng. In the end, he managed to get rid of Lin Feng and successfully fought against Lin Feng. However, the current Feather Immortal King was injured, and his battle prowess had decreased by quite a bit. But now, Feather Immortal King was even more injured. Feather Immortal King's situation was extremely bad. That human cultivator is too strong, isn't he? Even Feather Immortal King was injured by him. Doesn't this mean that Feather Immortal King is not his match? At this moment, a cultivator said, "That is indeed the case. That cultivator's battle strength is too heaven-defying. However, I wonder who he is. He is so young, and yet he is so terrifying. It is really hard to understand. How did he manage to increase his battle strength?" Do you guys think that Feather Immortal King will be killed by that young human cultivator? At this moment, a cultivator said, "If Feather Immortal King was killed, it would definitely be a sensational event. If Feather Immortal King died, it would cause an even greater sensation than those experts with a strong foundation." Those experts with a strong foundation had already lost their will to improve after being sealed for so long. In addition, their bodies were suppressed by the laws of heaven and earth. Therefore, their future was bleak. Unless those experts with a strong foundation found a way to get rid of the suppression of the laws of heaven and earth, their lifespan would quickly decrease, and their battle strength would continue to decrease. However, Feather Immortal King was different. Feather Immortal King was very young, and his cultivation was very strong. He was so young. He was so strong. Feather Immortal King's future was bright. He would definitely be an overlord in the future. Therefore, if Feather Immortal King died, it would cause an extremely shocking sensation. Swoosh! At this moment, Lin Feng quickly charged towards Feather Immortal King. Lin Feng wanted to seize this rare opportunity to kill Feather Immortal King. Feather Immortal King, your era is over. Dying at my hands is not an unjust death. Lin Feng looked at Feather Immortal King indifferently and said coldly. Feather Immortal King's expression was extremely gloomy. He said coldly, "You want to kill me? You must be dreaming. Today, I lost to you not because I couldn't defeat you, but because I fell into your trap and allowed you to get close to me. If I didn't fight you with my physical body and get injured, do you think you would be my match?" Feather Immortal King was clearly unwilling to accept Lin Feng. He felt that he couldn't fully unleash his battle strength because he was injured during the fight. That was the reason why he couldn't defeat Lin Feng, not because he couldn't defeat Lin Feng. Lin Feng sneered and said, "A loss is a loss. This is a world that only looks at the result, not the process. I think you should know that." When Lin Feng finished talking, he jumped forwards and his body turned into a yin and yang 8 trigrams. That yin-yang 8 trigrams diagram swept through the void, shattering heaven and earth, and then swept towards Feather Immortal King. He wanted to kill Feather Immortal King. Feather Immortal King was heavily injured, so he didn't dare to continue fighting Lin Feng. Facing Lin Feng's attack, Feather Immortal King took out a miniature golden puppet. The runes on the miniature golden puppet instantly came to life. In the next moment, the miniature golden puppet turned into Feather Immortal King's appearance. Then, it pounced towards Lin Feng. "Today, my wife was given an injection to induce labor. It's estimated that she will give birth in the second half of the night. It's really tiring to stay up all night. However, no matter how tired I am, I must continue to update because I need to repay my brothers and sisters who support Old Mantu." Chapter 5067. This was a very special kind of puppet technique. The puppet that turned into the Feather Immortal King's true body was very powerful. However, it didn't seem that strong in front of Lin Feng. Even the Feather Immortal King was defeated, let alone the Feather Immortal King's puppet. When the puppet attacked, Lin Feng's yin-yang 8 trigrams swept towards the puppet. Pooh! The head of the puppet was instantly chopped off by Lin Feng's yin-yang 8 trigrams. After seeing this, many people couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Lin Feng was really too powerful. It seemed that the Feather Immortal King would definitely die today. However, in the next moment, they realized that something was wrong. After Lin Feng killed the puppet, Lin Feng was stunned. The Feather Immortal King's body seemed to have teleported. He disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Many people showed puzzled expressions. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. Lin Feng was more familiar with the Tao of space. Therefore, when Lin Feng had killed the puppet, he had noticed something special about it. When he killed the puppet, an invisible force seemed to be emitted from the puppet's body. Then, that invisible force formed a void passage. The void power surged out and enveloped the Feather Immortal King. The Feather Immortal King instantly entered the void passage. Lin Feng tried to seal the void passage. However, he realized that the void passage was a one-time use one. After using it once, the void passage would disappear. Since the Feather Immortal King had already used the void passage, Lin Feng couldn't use it anymore. This made Lin Feng feel very helpless. If that was the case, his plan to kill the Feather Immortal King had completely failed. The Feather Immortal King escaped, a cultivator said in surprise. Someone nodded and said, "Indeed, he escaped. I knew it. Feather Immortal King wouldn't be killed that easily. He has many tricks up his sleeves. Even though he can't defeat that young man, it's not a problem for him to escape." It seems like the result is the same as what I expected. Speaking of which, that young genius from the human race is really too strong. Even Feather Immortal King is no match for him. I wonder what kind of expert would be able to deal with him. The surrounding cultivators whispered to each other and discussed. At this moment, the cultivators of the four major immortal sects turned around and tried to escape. However, they felt as if they had lost control of their bodies. Their legs seemed to be rooted to the ground. Their bodies and minds could no longer come to an agreement. Lin Feng looked at Luo Ziming and sneered. "Were you the one who said you wanted to kill me?" Luo Ziming was so scared that his whole body trembled. Previously, in order to flatter Feather Immortal King, he jumped out and used words to humiliate Lin Feng. Now, even Feather Immortal King had been injured by Lin Feng and had escaped. He was nothing in front of Lin Feng. "Spare me. Young master, please spare my worthless life. I will never offend you again, and I won't dare to cause trouble for the monsters anymore." Luo Ziming screamed in horror. Actually, Luo Ziming's cultivation was very strong, but the gap between him and Lin Feng was too big. Therefore, Luo Ziming had no intention of fighting against Lin Feng. If he dared to use it, he would die miserably. "Spare you? Do you think that's possible?" Lin Feng sneered. He raised his right hand and waved it in the air. A splashing sound was heard. Luo Ziming's head soared into the sky. "He's dead. Luo Ziming is dead. He won't let us go. Let's fight him to the death." "That's right. Let's fight him to the death. With so many of us working together, we might not lose to him." The other cultivators couldn't help but shout loudly. Over 100 cultivators knew that they couldn't just sit and wait for death. Otherwise, they would definitely die. Therefore, they decided to fight to the death. Over 100 cultivators were all very strong, now that they had made up their minds to fight against Lin Feng. Their wills merged together. Above them, there was even a smoke of essence. Initially, those people had been oppressed by Lin Feng's invisible and intangible qi. They couldn't move at all. But now, their wills had merged together and dissolved the pressure that Lin Feng had exerted on them. Therefore, they were able to move again. This group of cultivators quickly rushed towards Lin Feng. Their killing intent was clear. They looked like they wouldn't rest until Lin Feng was dead. "I will grant you death," seeing this group of cultivators surrounding and attacking him. Lin Feng's cold voice sounded. His voice was like the voice of death that floated out from hell. As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, a large amount of death energy filled the air. The force of death instantly shrouded the cultivators. "Oh my God, look at this." Some cultivators who were watching the battle in the distance pointed at the cultivators of the four major immortal sects and cried out in horror. Everyone looked over. They saw that the cultivators of the four major immortal sects were rapidly aging. In the blink of an eye, they became old men with white hair and stooped bodies. This change happened in an extremely short period of time. Many people didn't even have time to react before those cultivators became extremely old. How can this be? No, this can't be real. What about me? How did I end up like this? The cultivators of the four major immortal sects cried out in horror. They didn't want to die. They didn't want to die in this way. They watched their bodies grow old until they died. This method of death made people feel despair. But no one could change this. They watched themselves die slowly. In the end, more than 100 cultivators of the four major immortal sects had their lifespans taken away by Lin Feng. In an extremely short period of time, their bodies turned into a group of dried corpses. The cultivators who were watching the show in the distance were shocked. What kind of method was that? He actually took away the lives of a group of experts so quickly. It was too terrifying. Now, everyone looked at Lin Feng as though he was a god. They were filled with reverence. Does anyone know the whereabouts of Feng Yaorao, the Fire Qilin, Princess Shui Yao, and the others? Lin Feng asked the cultivators in the distance. There were many of them, so they should be very well informed. Therefore, Lin Feng felt that some of them should have heard about Feng Yaorao and the others. If they really knew, he would be able to find out more about Feng Yaorao and the others from them. First update. At 4:40 a.m. today, he had a son. Although old Mantu hadn't slept for dozens of hours, he was very excited. Chapter 5068. Hearing Lin Feng's question, many people exchanged glances. Clearly, they did not know who Feng Yaorao, the Fire Qilin, and the others were. It was no wonder they did not know Feng Yaorao and the others. The main reason was that they had not been in the undying world for a long time. In addition, they had spent most of their time in seclusion. Thus, the outside world was not very familiar with them. Of course, not everyone did not know them. Suddenly, a cultivator asked, "May I ask if the Feng Yaorao you speak of is a very bewitching woman? Is she from the 9 provinces' great world?" When Lin Feng heard that, he nodded hastily and said, "Indeed, that's her. Have you seen her, Your Excellency?" The cultivator immediately said, "I have indeed seen her before. She seems to have entered the time cave. I wonder how she is now." When he heard the words time cave, Little Peng King's expression changed abruptly. Lin Feng could not help but frown slightly. In truth, Lin Feng was not unfamiliar with this name. In the past, the Heavenly Sage Great World had an organization called the Time Cave. Lin Feng hadn't thought he'd come across a time cave in the immortal world. Clearly, the time cave in the undying world was completely different from the time cave in the Heavenly Sage Great World. The time cave in the Heavenly Sage Great World was an organization, while the time cave in the undying world was an extremely dangerous place. Lin Feng even suspected that the cultivator from the Heavenly Sage Great World had created the time cave because he had heard of the time cave in the undying world. Therefore, he named the organization he created Chronology Cave. In truth, Lin Feng's guess was correct. Back then, the expert who had created the time cave in the Heavenly Sage Great World knew of the time cave in the undying world. At that time, that powerhouse couldn't think of a better name. Therefore, that powerhouse decided to create the time cave. Why did she enter this place? Lin Feng asked with a frown. He did not think that Feng Yaorao would casually enter a dangerous place like the time cave. This place was much more of a deterrent to women than men. As the name suggested, time cave meant a cave that could strip away one's lifespan. Women were most afraid of aging. Beautiful women would age easily. Many peerless beauties were worried that one day they would also become like this. Therefore, no woman would be willing to go to a place that would deprive them of their lifespan. Sometimes, give a beautiful woman a multiple-choice question. First, I'll give you an opportunity. 2, let you stay young forever. There is almost no need to consider this choice. Almost 100% of the beautiful fairies will choose the second option. They were willing to give up a lot of things in order to have a beautiful face. Feng Yaorao was naturally the same. Therefore, if not for the fact that she had no other choice, Feng Yaorao would absolutely not enter Time Cave. Prince Xian Yun is chasing after Fairy Feng. Fairy Feng had no choice but to escape into the Time Cave, said Lin Feng. The cultivator said, "Young Master Xian Yun, who is this person?" Lin Feng's face immediately darkened. He wanted to kill this young Master Xian Yun. This person deserved 10,000 deaths. The cultivator said, "Young Master Xian Yun is a cultivator from the 9 Demon Palace. Young Master must have heard of his elder brother. His elder brother is the famous young Master Xian Yu." Hearing this, Lin Feng couldn't help but slightly raise his eyebrows. Lin Feng had naturally heard of young Master Xianyu. He was once one of the 10 heroes of the undying world. Moreover, he had gone to the heaven realm to cultivate for a period of time. Young Master Xianyu was much stronger than the feather immortal king that Lin Feng had met before. Therefore, young Master Xianyu was definitely an extremely terrifying existence. But no matter who this young Master Xianyun's brother or father was, as long as he offended Lin Feng would definitely not let him off. Furthermore, this guy didn't just offend Lin Feng, because he actually had designs on Feng Yaorao. Feng Yaorao was one of Lin Feng's favorite women. Young Master Xianyun was courting death by having designs on Feng Yaorao. All right, thank you for your information. In the future, if there's anything you can't solve, you can think of a way to contact the people from the Demon Clan. The people from the Demon Clan will tell me about your information, and at that time, I will help you solve those problems. Lin Feng said. After hearing Lin Feng's words, the cultivator's face immediately revealed a look of ecstasy. This was truly a pleasant surprise. As a result, that's why he and Lin Feng were friends. The rest of the people looked at the cultivator with envy and jealousy. They also wanted to provide some information to Lin Feng, but they didn't know anything about Feng Yaorao, Fire Qilin, and the others. So they also felt helpless. They had missed this opportunity. The next time they wanted to find a chance to befriend Lin Feng, it wouldn't be so easy. Everyone was clear about this. That was why they were so vexed. Lin Feng and Little Peng King didn't stop. They quickly flew in the direction of the time cave. Little Peng King had been to the heavenly illusionary world before, so he knew where the time cave was. The two of them were extremely fast. After 3 days, Lin Feng saw a huge mountain range in the distance. There were more than 10 mountains in that mountain range. As for those mountains, they were actually all purple. It was really strange. The mountains were actually purple. No one knew what caused it. The time cave is in the inner region of the Purple Mountain Range. Little Peng King said. Lin Feng nodded. He increased his speed because Lin Feng was worried about Feng Yaorao's safety. Therefore, he couldn't wait to enter the time cave to check it out. There were many cultivators wandering around the time cave. Many people were watching. The time cave was very dangerous. Therefore, although those cultivators were extremely curious about it, they also wanted to enter the time cave. However, they didn't act on it. A place like the time cave was too dangerous. They didn't dare to take the risk to enter it. We still don't know what's going on in the time cave, so you wait here first. I'll go in myself. Lin Feng said. Little Peng King also knew that if he followed Lin Feng in, he might cause trouble for Lin Feng. Therefore, after hearing Lin Feng's words, he nodded and said, All right, I'll wait here. However, the time cave is very dangerous. This time, you must be careful when you enter the time cave. Lin Feng nodded and said, Okay, I'll be careful. With that, Lin Feng quickly flew towards the depths of the mountain range. Chapter 5069. Look, someone has entered the mountain range. Could it be that he wants to explore the time cave? It seems to be an extremely young human cultivator. That guy actually dares to enter the time cave alone. Is he courting death? Seeing Lin Feng enter the Purple Mountain Range where the time cave was located, a cultivator immediately cried out in alarm. It was no wonder that those cultivators were so shocked. The time cave was a dangerous place. Not everyone was qualified to enter and explore it. Such a place was too dangerous. The slightest carelessness could lead to a tragic death. In this world, there will always be some people who think that they are the children of fate. They would then explore those dangerous places. Only after entering those places would they realize how foolish their previous thoughts were. It's just that it's already too late for them to leave that place. Another cultivator said, "That kid is dead for sure." Another cultivator said, clearly, in the other party's opinion, Lin Feng was on the road to death this time. Many cultivators agreed with that cultivator. Entering the Purple Mountain Range was no different from courting death. Lin Feng naturally didn't know what the cultivators outside were discussing. He had never cared about other people's opinions. After entering the Purple Mountain Range, Lin Feng flew all the way to the depths. The Purple Mountain Range was indeed very strange. It was filled with the aura of time. Some places contained extremely terrifying power of time. If one were to enter a place covered by the power of time, it would be an extremely tragic thing. This was because such places were very terrifying. Once a cultivator entered, it would be very difficult to rush out. At that time, all of their lifespan would be stripped away by the power of time. Thinking about it, it was really a terrifying thing. On the way, Lin Feng saw many skeletons. It seemed that those people had their lifespan stripped away by the power of time. In the end, they died here. Lin Feng now had a way to resist the erosion of the power of time. After all, Lin Feng cultivated the Tao of Time. Of course, Lin Feng's cultivation of the Tao of Time wasn't particularly deep. The main reason was that the Tao of Time was too mysterious and complicated. It was very difficult to comprehend the mysteries of the Tao of Time. Therefore, although Lin Feng could resist the erosion of the power of time, there was a limit to this resistance. Lin Feng didn't know how long he could endure. He needed to see the specific situation to determine how long he could endure. For example, he had to avoid the areas where the power of time lingered as much as possible. Other cultivators might not be able to sense the terrifying power of time, but Lin Feng could. Therefore, on the way, even though time's strength kept attacking Lin Feng managed to dodge it. Lin Feng went deeper. Logically speaking, there should be some terrifying creatures living in such a dangerous place. However, there didn't seem to be any living creatures in this place. Or maybe those terrifying creatures didn't appear because they felt that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. This was also a possibility. Lin Feng continued to go deeper. Finally, he arrived at the main peak. Halfway up the main peak, Lin Feng saw a huge cave. The terrifying power of time emanated from the cave. She shouldn't have entered the time cave, right? Did she just hide in the Purple Mountain Range? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He felt that there might be some problems with the cultivator's description. One didn't have to enter the time cave to enter the Purple Mountain Range. However, the Purple Mountain Range was also a dangerous place. Therefore, many people felt that there was no difference between entering the Purple Mountain Range and the time cave. However, just as Lin Feng was thinking about this matter, Lin Feng saw a jade pendant outside the time cave. Feng Yarao's jade pendant. It was given to her by the heavenly wind god. Lin Feng was astonished when he saw the jade pendant. It was a gift from his father-in-law, the heavenly wind god, to Feng Yarao when she was 18 years old. Perhaps it was the first time Feng Yarao had received a gift from her father, so she treasured that jade pendant very much. Thus, she had always worn that jade pendant on her body. However, it had now appeared at the entrance of the time cave. This meant that Feng Yarao had really entered the time cave. Since he was sure that Feng Yarao had entered the time cave, Lin Feng wouldn't hesitate to enter the time cave, no matter how dangerous it was. Please don't let anything happen to her. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He picked up Feng Yaorao's jade pendant and quickly rushed into the time cave. The power of time within the time cave seemed to possess a life of its own. After Lin Feng rushed into the time cave, a large amount of the power of time surged toward him. The power of time. It was constantly corroding Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng operated the Tao of time to neutralize the terrifying power of time. In a short period of time, Lin Feng wouldn't be harmed by the power of time. However, Lin Feng knew that he wouldn't be able to hold on for too long. Right now, Lin Feng's mood was extremely bad. The power of time within the time cave was so terrifying. Feng Yaorao shouldn't have entered the time cave willingly, right? The reason why he came to this conclusion was because if Feng Yaorao had entered the time cave willingly, how could her jade pendant have fallen outside? This was also the reason why Lin Feng felt that Feng Yaorao hadn't entered the time cave willingly. Was she captured by something and brought into the time cave? Perhaps there really was such a possibility. Lin Feng's expression was gloomy. He was now worried that the power of time would harm Feng Yaorao. If the power of time had harmed Feng Yaorao, she might have already turned into a pink skeleton. Thinking of this, Lin Feng couldn't help but become extremely anxious. Lin Feng increased his speed. Not long after, Lin Feng arrived at the depths of the time cave. In the depths of the time cave was a huge mountain cave. The powerful power of time was surging out from this mountain cave. That huge mountain cave should be the core area of the time cave. That is, when Lin Feng entered that huge mountain cave, his face immediately revealed an extremely shocked expression. Lin Feng seemed to have seen something astonishing in the time cave. Chapter 5070. A huge flower appeared in the center of the cave. It was a rainbow-colored flower. It took root in the void. Every time it swayed, a rainbow-colored light would emanate from it. The flower of time. The demon lord couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Clearly, the flower had shocked the demon lord. Lin Feng asked, "The flower of time? What kind of flower is that?" "It's a special flower born in the strength of time. It's very strange, but it's also very powerful. However, if you can kill a flower of time, you'll get great benefits. Let's join hands and kill the flower of time. The petals will belong to you. If you swallow those petals, your Tao of time will definitely reach the maximum level. As for the stamens, they'll belong to me," said Lin Feng. Yao Jun said. Lin Feng said, "I'm here to find Feng Yaorao. I'm not here to deal with the flower of time." The demon lord naturally knew that Lin Feng was very worried about Feng Yaorao. Therefore, when Lin Feng said this, the demon lord didn't reply. He would persuade Lin Feng later. When the time came, they would be able to work together to deal with the flower of time. Human cultivators are really surprising. Such a young life form actually understands the Tao of time. At that moment, a voice came from the flower of time. It was a woman's voice. However, this voice wasn't pleasant to the ears. It sounded a little harsh. "She's become a spirit." Lin Feng was shocked. Then he asked, "Where's Feng Yaorao? What did you do to her?" "Feng Yaorao? Are you talking about the woman I captured before?" the flower of time asked. When he heard this, Lin Feng immediately revealed a look of joy. This meant that Feng Yaorao had really been captured by the flower of time. However, Lin Feng started to worry again. He was worried that Feng Yaorao would meet with misfortune. Lin Feng said with a gloomy expression, "That's right, it's her. She has a perfect body and a perfect face. Now, I want to live in her body. Then I will become a new me. I will no longer exist in this world as a flower. At that time, I will be able to leave the time cave." Lin Feng asked with a grim expression, "What will happen to my friend in the end?" The Flower of Time said, "Congratulations to your friend. She will provide me with a perfect body in the end." Lin Feng coldly said, "That means she's going to die." The Flower of Time said, "How could he die? Of course she won't die. That wouldn't be called death, but rather a new life. Her soul will go to the pure land of bliss. F*CK, your pure land of bliss." Lin Feng couldn't help but curse. This *TCH, the Flower of Time, was quite good at finding excuses to fool people. Lin Feng had the urge to cut the Flower of Time into pieces. "You don't know the difference between life and death. Now die." The Flower of Time's cold voice rang out. Next, the Flower of Time gently swayed a leaf. A terrifying wave of time energy blasted towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't dare to be careless. He hurriedly took out his ruler's armor. The ruler's armor protected Lin Feng's body. What surprised Lin Feng was that the ruler's armor was actually able to resist the corrosion of time energy. This utmost treasure was truly extraordinary. To think that it could even defend against the power of time. It was truly amazing. Although it was impossible to completely resist the power of time that invaded the body, it could resist almost half of the power of time. Lin Feng was already very satisfied with this result. In addition, Lin Feng had grasped the Tao of time, so he could use less magic power to resist the invasion of time energy. As a result, Lin Feng could last longer in the Cave of Time. Bang! Following a violent collision, Lin Feng and the Flower of Time's attack collided. The Flower of Time's attack was truly terrifying. It actually sent Lin Feng flying. Lin Feng's expression became incomparably gloomy. The Flower of Time was much more terrifying than he'd imagined. "Demon Lord, let's work together to deal with the Flower of Time," said Lin Feng telepathically. "Of course, no problem. To deal with the Flower of Time, you need to use the most powerful and violent attack to destroy its foundation. In a moment, my strength will completely fuse with yours. At that time, you can activate the Epic War Spear and try to kill the enemy in the shortest time possible," said the Demon Lord. Lin Feng nodded and said, "All right, hurry up and pour your strength into my body," said Lin Feng, nodding. As soon as Lin Feng finished speaking, he sensed an incomparably powerful strength pouring into his body. That strength made Lin Feng feel an impulse to raise his head and roar. The Demon Lord's strength. It poured into Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng felt like he wasn't himself anymore. After fusing with the Demon Lord's strength, he had a feeling that even if a golden immortal or a holy immortal came, he would still be able to fight against a celestial emperor. Had the Demon Lord become so powerful, Lin Feng's heart was in turmoil. It seemed that the Demon Lord had recovered quite well over the years. Lin Feng was naturally very happy. As far as he was concerned, the more the Demon Lord recovered, the better. "Demon Lord, it seems that you've recovered quite well over the years," said Lin Feng telepathically. Said the Demon Lord, "You're still far from it. When you know how powerful the enemy is, and then think about your own cultivation, you'll immediately feel an incomparable sense of urgency. Therefore, the most important thing now is to raise your cultivation as quickly as possible." Lin Feng nodded. If he killed the Flower of Time now, not only would he be able to save Feng Yaorao, but it would also be a great opportunity to raise his strength. Therefore, Lin Feng was somewhat impatient. Previously, when he hadn't fused with the Demon Lord's strength, dealing with the Flower of Time was indeed too difficult. However, things were different now. The Demon Lord's strength had fused with Lin Feng's body, and Lin Feng's combat strength had risen to an unprecedented level. This greatly boosted Lin Feng's confidence. Lin Feng took out the Epic War Spear and took the initiative to attack the Flower of Time. "How did your strength increase so much in an instant?" Is there a special existence residing in your body? The Flower of Time's senses were extremely sharp. It instantly sensed that Lin Feng was different from before. But then the Flower of Time sneered. But it's useless. No matter what method you use, your fate has long been sealed. You are destined to die at my hands. As soon as it finished speaking, the power of time in the void surged even more violently and attacked Lin Feng. Chapter 5071. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He held the epic war spear and thrust it forward. The spear. It pierced through heaven and earth. It was like an invincible god of war had attacked. The power of the spear caused heaven and earth to change color, and the sun and moon to sink. Initially, when Lin Feng used his Era's battle spear, he could already release incredible strength. But now, Lin Feng had received the support of the Demon Lord's power, so the epic war spear's power had naturally increased greatly. The epic war spear was Lin Feng's strongest treasure. It was even stronger than an ancient weapon. In terms of grade, the epic war spear was still equivalent to a top-tier ancient weapon. However, because it was a treasure passed down through the generations, it relied heavily on the bloodline. In the hands of cultivators from other races, it was equivalent to a top-tier ancient weapon. However, in the hands of a sovereign, its power would increase by another level. Therefore, in Lin Feng's hands, the epic war spear was even stronger than an ancient weapon. Therefore, when Lin Feng thrust the epic war spear, its power could be described as apocalyptic. It instantly destroyed the power of time that was attacking Lin Feng. Lin Feng's morale was greatly boosted. He strode towards the Flower of Time. Lin Feng's voice was cold. Flower of Time, it's time for everything to end. Today, I will send you off. Boy, it's too early for you to be happy. The battle between us has only just begun. The Flower of Time sneered. The Flower of Time suddenly swept out 7 different types of energy. The 7 different types of energy fused together and turned into a 7-colored immortal light. Next, a large amount of time energy fused with the 7-colored immortal light, and the 7-colored immortal light turned into an 8-colored immortal light. The 8-colored immortal light was unimaginably powerful. After sensing the terrifying aura of the 8-colored immortal light, Lin Feng couldn't help but reveal a trace of shock. This was because even as strong as he was now, when he sensed the power of the 8-colored immortal light, his blood began to flow at an unprecedented speed. This was the ability of sudden inspiration. At this time, the blood in Lin Feng's body began to flow rapidly. This meant that Lin Feng's life was in danger. This was an extremely frightening thing because the opponent's attack was already threatening his life. Break! Lin Feng gathered his power and stabbed out. The epic war spear also vibrated with extremely strong power. Lin Feng became one with the spear and wanted to destroy the 8-colored immortal light. The epic war spear in Lin Feng's hand collided with the 8-colored immortal light in an instant. Lin Feng felt as if his spear had stabbed an immortal mountain. The immortal mountain was emitting an even more powerful force that began to oppress Lin Feng's body. The powerful force made Lin Feng feel a suffocating pressure. The attack of the Flower of Time was too powerful. Lin Feng was actually suppressed. Lin Feng's expression suddenly changed. The Flower of Time was actually so powerful. It was no wonder that the Demon Lord suggested to combine their power and activate the epic war spear at the same time to deal with the Flower of Time. Such a powerful and terrifying Flower of Time naturally needed to be treated with extreme caution. The slightest carelessness would be extremely fatal. Boy, you will soon become my nourishment. The cold voice of the Flower of Time came. Its attack was getting stronger and stronger. The power of its attack came from 2 aspects. The first aspect was that the 7-colored immortal light emitted from its body would affect the final attack. The second aspect was that the power of time in the Cave of Time would affect the final attack. The power of the seven-colored immortal light was very strong, but it was not to the point where it could not be resisted. However, the attack formed by the eight-colored immortal light that was integrated with the power of time was too terrifying. It suppressed Lin Feng to the point where he had almost no chance to fight back. As the power of time continued to integrate into it, the power of the eight-colored immortal light was still increasing. Lin Feng knew that he absolutely could not continue like this. If this continued, then he would really be finished. The flower of time was so confident. It had indeed obtained an oppressive advantage now. The flower of time felt that Lin Feng was definitely going to die. It was normal for it to have such thoughts. However, it also underestimated Lin Feng's means. Although Lin Feng was indeed very suppressed now, it did not mean that Lin Feng had no ability to resist at all. In fact, it was not like this. Lin Feng had already thought of a counterattack. That was, he planned to use the Great Fate technique to isolate the seven-colored immortal light and the power of time. If the seven-colored immortal light and the power of time could not be combined, there was no way to continuously form the eight-colored immortal light. When the time came, the flower of time's attack would not be able to hurt Lin Feng. In the face of the proud flower of time's self-righteous words, Lin Feng did not refute. At this moment, Lin Feng was preparing to activate the Great Fate technique. The Great Tao of Fate, please descend the power of fate. Let the power of fate dominate all the order of the world. Lin Feng's sincere voice resounded in the time cave. After his voice faded, a large amount of the power of fate suddenly appeared in the time cave. The power of fate continuously poured out from the void. Under Lin Feng's control, the power of fate integrated into the void of the time cave. Then, the power of fate, it isolated the seven-colored immortal light and the power of time from the flower of time. The flower of time tried to absorb more power of time to increase the power of its attack. Then it could eliminate Lin Feng in one fell swoop. However, it failed. Not only did its attack not become stronger, but it also weakened greatly because it could not absorb the power of time. Lin Feng held the battle spear in his hand. The battle spear in his hand suddenly shook the void. In an instant, the seven-colored immortal light in the void shattered. Seeing the seven-colored immortal light shatter, Lin Feng's face lit up with joy. He had finally broken the flower of time's attack. It was really dangerous just now. Fortunately, the Great Fate technique was stronger. Otherwise, he might have died under the flower of time's attack just now. After resolving the flower of time's attack, Lin Feng held the battle spear in his hand and leaped out. He then stabbed towards the flower of time. Powerful magic power continuously poured into the Era battle spear. As Lin Feng's magic power poured in, the Era battle spear's aura and power continued to increase. Chapter 5072. Puff. Lin Feng's peerless spear directly pierced the petals of the flower of time. The first petal was immediately pierced by Lin Feng's epic war spear. Ah, you actually hurt me. The flower of time let out an incomparably painful scream. It was injured by Lin Feng. Now it was incomparably angry, and its killing intent was monstrous. Lin Feng could clearly feel it. Inside the flower of time, there seemed to be a special power. That special power, it had a great impact on his epic war spear. Lin Feng's epic war spear seemed to be stuck. The situation, it was really quite bad. Lin Feng's face couldn't help but sink slightly. Suddenly, the petals of the flower of time began to open on their own. When the first petal opened, an invisible force was released. At such a close distance, Lin Feng couldn't dodge at all. Moreover, Even if he could dodge that invisible and intangible strength, Lin Feng couldn't dodge that invisible and intangible strength. Because Lin Feng's epic war spear hadn't been pulled out yet. The epic war spear couldn't leave his hand. If he couldn't control the flower of the epic war spear, how could he fight against the flower of time? When the time came, he would probably be destroyed by the flower of time. Therefore, Lin Feng forcibly endured that invisible force attack. Although he was wearing the ruler's armor, although his physical body was strong. However, when Lin Feng's body forcibly endured the terrifying attack just now, he was still shaken to the point of spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. Lin Feng's face became extremely pale. He felt that his bones had been shattered. He didn't know when the last time he suffered such an injury. His damage was completely suppressed. It seemed that even if he joined forces with the Demon Lord, they were still not a match for the Flower of Time. For countless years, I have never suffered any injuries, but now I was actually injured by an ant-like character like you. You really deserve to die. The Flower of Time's voice sounded a little flustered. The Flower of Time was too powerful. Such a powerful existence was actually injured by Lin Feng. Hence, the Flower of Time was abnormally angry. This was what it meant to fly into a rage out of humiliation. Once one flew into a rage out of humiliation, one could do anything. The current Flower of Time didn't want to kill Lin Feng so easily, because in the eyes of the Flower of Time, that would be too easy for Lin Feng. It wanted Lin Feng to die in fear and pain. If possible, it would be best for Lin Feng to beg for mercy. But the Flower of Time wouldn't forgive Lin Feng. The Flower of Time simply wanted to see Lin Feng's pitiful appearance. Such a scene could bring the Flower of Time a sense of pleasure. It had to be said that the Flower of Time was really abnormal. The second petal opened and released a terrifying strength. That terrifying strength bombarded Lin Feng's body again. Kacha, 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 kacha. Lin Feng's bones were already broken by that invisible and intangible strength. Lin Feng's face was deathly pale. He was going insane. He was actually injured like this by the Flower of Time. And the most tragic thing was that Lin Feng didn't have a way to fight back. This made him quite depressed. Lin Feng transmitted his voice to the Demon Lord. But now that the power of the Demon Lord had integrated into Lin Feng's body, the Demon Lord couldn't continue to help Lin Feng. Even the Demon Lord didn't expect the Flower of Time to be so tyrannical. It was simply an existence that couldn't be resisted. Bang, bang, bang. The petals of the Flower of Time continued to open. Every time a new petal opened, the Flower of Time would erupt with an extremely terrifying invisible power. And Lin Feng would be injured by this invisible power. Lin Feng didn't know how many of his bones were broken. Fortunately, Lin Feng's immortal bloodline was strong enough. Otherwise, even if he was wearing the Dominator's armor, he would have been shocked to death many times over. But now, being able to survive was really not an easy thing to do. Lin Feng tried hard to pull out the arrow war spear, but after many attempts, he still couldn't succeed. Lin Feng knew that he couldn't continue to sit and wait for death. In the process of resisting the Flower of Time, his spiritual power was extremely consumed. If he couldn't get rid of this guy, then it would be really dangerous. Lin Feng thought of a method. Lin Feng didn't know if it would be effective. Lin Feng's method was to use the broken corpse in the mysterious iron box to deal with the Flower of Time. Perhaps it would be effective. After thinking of this, Lin Feng quickly summoned the mysterious iron box. You actually have this iron box. When the Flower of Time saw the mysterious iron box, it cried out in alarm. It couldn't believe its eyes. The mysterious iron box had reappeared in the world. This made it think of many terrifying legends. The mysterious iron box knew those legends because it had devoured many powerful cultivators over the countless years. It was madly absorbing the souls and memories of those cultivators. Now, those souls and memories had become its memories, so it knew many things about the mysterious iron box. Lin Feng ignored the flower of time. The most important thing now was to open the mysterious iron box. It would take some time. The flower of time also knew that Lin Feng wanted to open the mysterious iron box to deal with it. So, after a short period of shock, the flower of time attacked again. This time, the flower of time's attack wasn't aimed at Lin Feng. It was aimed at the mysterious iron box. Bang! An invisible power directly shook the mysterious iron box. The mysterious iron box. It was immediately sent flying. Not good. Lin Feng's expression suddenly changed. The mysterious iron box had been sent flying. This was going to be troublesome. He still wanted to use the mysterious iron box to deal with the flower of time. Now, this hope had been completely dashed. Your wish has been dashed. Now, you can die. The flower of time's voice was filled with killing intent. Originally, the flower of time wanted to torture Lin Feng. Then, it would kill Lin Feng. But after the flower of time saw that Lin Feng's methods were extremely extraordinary, it immediately gave up on this idea. He had to hurry up and kill Lin Feng. He didn't want anything else to happen. So, the flower of time, it attacked Lin Feng again. This time, the flower of time opened 9 petals. 9 was the ultimate number. It represented death. This was an ominous number. It made countless experts afraid. When the flower of time opened 9 petals, it represented the ultimate killing. So, after the 9 petals opened, a terrifying power erupted. It made Lin Feng. They couldn't help but feel a sense of extreme despair. Chapter 5073. Lin Feng's face was gloomy. The attack of the flower of time was too powerful, especially now. The flower of time actually opened 9 flower braids at once. This was too terrifying. Lin Feng knew that the attack formed by the flower of time opening 9 flower braids at once was not something he could contend against now. However, the mysterious iron box was sent flying by the flower of time. Therefore, now he couldn't use the mysterious iron box to deal with the attack of the flower of time. The current situation was too dangerous. Lin Feng could die under the attack of the flower of time at any time. But at this extremely dangerous moment, Lin Feng suddenly felt that the complete heaven-shaking steel in the space of time was emitting waves of violent fluctuations. When Lin Feng felt the fluctuations emitted by the heaven-shaking steel, his face immediately revealed a look of joy. Could it be that the heaven-shaking steel could be useful at this time? If that was the case, then that would be great. Lin Feng hurriedly took out the heaven-shaking steel. When the heaven-shaking steel was taken out by Lin Feng, many runes appeared on the heaven-shaking steel. This shocked Lin Feng because the heaven-shaking steel was basically in the state of a wordless steel. The runes inside the heaven-shaking steel rarely awakened. However, once those runes awakened, they would often erupt with extremely terrifying power. Now that the runes of the heaven-shaking steel had awakened, the heaven-shaking steel directly flew towards the flower of time. At this time, the powerful attacks released by the 9 flower braids all bombarded the heaven-shaking steel. Something shocking happened. Those powerful forces were all absorbed by the heaven-shaking steel. The heaven-shaking steel was indeed terrifying. The battle strength it displayed was simply too powerful. In fact, Lin Feng didn't know why the heaven-shaking steel would have such a change at this time. However, Lin Feng felt that the heaven-shaking steel might have such a change because the heaven-shaking steel also wanted a share of the loot. Which part of the flower of time did the heaven-shaking steel need? Of course, Now was not the time to care about this. The most important thing was to destroy the flower of time. Lin Feng's Fa. Li kept pouring into the sky-shaking steel. As Lin Feng's Fa. Li kept pouring into the sky-shaking steel, the power of the sky-shaking steel kept increasing. The sky-shaking steel had always been a special supreme treasure. As a mysterious existence that could be mentioned in the same breath as the supreme immortal court and the gate of everlasting life, Lin Feng would not be surprised no matter how powerful the sky-shaking steel's attack was. This was because the heaven-shaking stone tablet was just that powerful. After the sky-shaking steel shattered the Flower of Time's attack, it quickly flew towards the Flower of Time. The heaven-shaking steel continued to bombard the Flower of Time. At the same time, the Flower of Time continued to bombard the heaven-shaking steel. The two sides engaged in a fierce battle. The fight was extremely intense, and it was hard to tell who would win. The Flower of Time was indeed heaven-defying. It was actually able to block the attack of the heaven-shaking steel. But this was only the beginning. As Lin Feng's Fa. Li kept pouring into the sky-shaking steel, the power of the sky-shaking steel continued to increase. Amidst the continuous collisions, Yi Zichen was stunned. Finally, the Flower of Time was gradually suppressed. The sky-shaking steel gained the upper hand. The sky-shaking steel, it's actually the sky-shaking steel. You actually have the sky-shaking steel, this supreme treasure. However, even if you have the sky-shaking steel, you will still die in my hands today. The Flower of Time's cold voice sounded. After the Flower of Time's voice sounded, a golden energy suddenly gushed out from the inside of the Flower of Time. It was an extremely strange golden energy. The golden energy was integrated with the power of time. After the golden energy gushed out, it fiercely hit the sky-shaking steel. The golden energy was so powerful that it actually knocked the sky-shaking steel away. Lin Feng's expression became extremely ugly. If even the sky-shaking steel could not suppress the Flower of Time, that would be terrible. Lin Feng really could not think of any other way to suppress the Flower of Time. The golden energy was too strange and too powerful. However, just as Lin Feng felt that things were getting more and more troublesome, the sky-shaking steel erupted with an even stronger power. That power was really terrifying. When Lin Feng felt the power gushing out from the sky-shaking steel, Lin Feng's face revealed a surprised expression. The sky-shaking steel was really mysterious. After being suppressed, it immediately began to counterattack. And the sky-shaking steel's counterattack was so fierce. The sky-shaking steel, whose power had greatly increased, once again suppressed the Flower of Time. The golden energy gushing out from the Flower of Time directly rushed toward the sky-shaking steel, like before. However, this time, the golden energy was directly shattered by the sky-shaking steel. The golden energy was very powerful, but now it seemed so weak under the sky-shaking steel's attack. Seeing the sky-shaking steel's great power, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly became extremely bright. The magic power in his body flowed into the sky-shaking steel continuously. After receiving the support of a large amount of magic power, the sky-shaking steel's power continued to increase. Under Lin Feng's control, the sky-shaking steel continued to suppress the Flower of Time. Facing the suppression of the sky-shaking steel, the Flower of Time gradually could not resist the suppression of the sky-shaking steel. Why is it like this? The Flower of Time cried out unwillingly. It continued to struggle. The petals of the Flower of Time shook violently. Waves of energy surged out from the ground. That kind of wave was very strange, as it impacted the sky-shaking steel. It wanted to dissolve the terrifying power of the sky-shaking steel. However, any attack in front of the sky-shaking steel seemed so weak. The main reason was that the sky-shaking steel was too powerful now. The sky-shaking steel directly shattered the wave attacks. Then, it suppressed the Flower of Time. The Flower of Time still wanted to continue struggling, but at this time, Lin Feng held the Era War Spear and directly swept it towards the Flower of Time. Uffed! With a tearing sound, a petal of the Flower of Time was directly cut off by Lin Feng. "I'm going to kill you." The Flower of Time screamed angrily. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. The Flower of Time was already like an arrow at the end of its flight. The current Lin Feng was not afraid of the Flower of Time at all. Chapter 5074. The world inside the Flower of Time was filled with a mysterious aura. This place was constructed by the Flower of Time, giving it a very mysterious color. Holy light lingered everywhere. It was dazzling and incomparably gorgeous. In addition, inside the Flower of Time, there was an extremely powerful power of time. The power of time in this place was relatively special. It contained an extremely ancient energy. Lin Feng even felt that if he absorbed the power of time in this place, it would greatly benefit his cultivation. Of course, Lin Feng didn't have the time to absorb the power of time in this place. He had to quickly find Feng Yaorao. This was the matter that Lin Feng was most concerned about. Lin Feng quickly rushed inside. After a quarter of an hour, Lin Feng saw a green plant in this world. That plant was growing towards the sky. In the center of the green plant was a huge ball wrapped in leaves. He didn't know what that thing was. After seeing that ball wrapped in leaves, Lin Feng couldn't help but be slightly surprised. He carefully sensed it and immediately revealed a happy expression, because Feng Yara was inside that ball. This made Lin Feng extremely happy. Lin Feng quickly flew towards that ball wrapped in leaves. Soon, he arrived at that ball wrapped in leaves. Lin Feng slashed out a sword chi. Along with a tearing sound, that ball wrapped in leaves was immediately torn apart by Lin Feng. Feng Yara was curled up inside, resting. She was as beautiful and moving as before. After seeing Feng Yara, Lin Feng couldn't help but reveal a happy expression. Feng Yara was fine. This was really a matter worthy of celebration. Lin Feng quickly flew in and hugged Feng Yara. Feng Yara seemed to have sensed something and opened her eyes. When she saw that it was Lin Feng, she couldn't help but mutter to herself, "Am I dreaming again? It's so good to be able to dream of you." After saying that, Feng Yara snuggled into Lin Feng's bosom and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Previously, she had been resisting the invasion of a strange power. Feng Yara felt that if she was unable to resist, she might disappear from this world. Therefore, Feng Yara didn't dare to be careless. However, Feng Yara's resistance was still very useful because she had fainted just before Lin Feng's arrival. But Lin Feng's arrival had woken her up once again. If Lin Feng had arrived late, Feng Yara might not have been able to hold on, and at that time, it would have been disastrous for Feng Yara. Perhaps by the time Lin Feng arrived, Feng Yara would have already perished. Fortunately, none of these terrible things happened. Lin Feng put Feng Yara into a time and empty space. Even though time and empty space were Lin Feng's secret, he didn't want to reveal it to other people, mainly because he could change the flow of time and he could store all sorts of resources. However, Lin Feng didn't hide anything from Feng Yara. Feng Yara was one of Lin Feng's favorite women, so Lin Feng naturally didn't want to hide this from Feng Yara. This green vine is the foundation of the Flower of Time. If you cut it, the Flower of Time will die. Demon Lord transmitted his voice to Lin Feng. Hearing this, Lin Feng nodded. He released sword chi towards the huge green vine, but at that moment, a green energy escaped from the huge green vine. That green energy protected the vine, and when Lin Feng's attack reached it, it was unexpectedly absorbed by the green energy. After seeing this scene, Lin Feng couldn't help but frown. It seemed like that green vine was really strange. He took out his epic war spear, wanting to use this powerful treasure to destroy that green energy, but he still failed. No matter what kind of attack he used, that green energy seemed to be able to absorb it. No, forcibly attacking is useless. Try to use your devouring martial spirit and see if you can absorb that green energy. Demon Lord transmitted his voice to Lin Feng. Hearing this, Lin Feng didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately used his devouring martial spirit and started to absorb that strange green energy. As Lin Feng used his devouring martial spirit, that strange green energy was gradually absorbed by Lin Feng. However, when Lin Feng absorbed that green energy, new energy was produced. Shit, I don't believe that I can absorb all of that green energy. Lin Feng couldn't help but shout loudly. Lin Feng continued to absorb that strange green energy. Lin Feng's devouring martial spirit had completely fused together and turned into a huge devouring black hole. Then Lin Feng started to continuously absorb that green energy. As time passed, the green energy was gradually absorbed by Lin Feng. Moreover, the speed at which Lin Feng was absorbing the green energy was much faster than the speed at which it was being reproduced. Therefore, the green energy couldn't be reproduced in time and became thinner and thinner. After Lin Feng had absorbed that green energy, Lin Feng suddenly felt that the sapling of the world tree in his dantian was emitting a cheerful sound. That green energy was unceasingly flowing into the sapling of the world tree. Since Lin Feng had obtained the sapling of the world tree when he was young, many years had passed, and the sapling of the world tree was growing very slowly. Firstly, the sapling of the world tree was an extremely high-level existence. Secondly, there wasn't enough energy to provide the sapling of the world tree. Ordinary energy couldn't make the sapling of the world tree grow. Only some special energy could do that. This green energy seemed to be able to do that. The sapling of the world tree greedily absorbed that energy. As the energy was absorbed by the sapling of the world tree, the sapling of the world tree started to grow rapidly. It didn't take long for the sapling of the world tree to grow 10 centimeters tall. At that moment, a branch of the sapling of the world tree started to grow crazily. That branch was rapidly growing towards Lin Feng's right arm. What's going on? The changes in his body naturally couldn't be hidden from Lin Feng. When Lin Feng saw this scene, his face was filled with shock. Chapter 5075, Gate of the Four Extremes? What's that? Lin Feng couldn't help but ask curiously. He didn't know much about the world tree sapling. After all, Lin Feng had only seen fragments of it and had never seen the real thing. It was rumored that the world tree that had taken root in the 9 continents was an extremely terrifying existence. If it hadn't been cut down, who knew how much it would have grown? Even the deterioration of the 9 continents seemed to have a lot to do with the world tree sapling. However, these were all just rumors. Now, perhaps he could hear more about the world tree from the Demon Lord. Lin Feng was sure that the Demon Lord had seen the real world tree. The Demon Lord didn't answer Lin Feng directly. Instead, he said, "The human body is a diagram of meridians. You know this?" Lin Feng nodded and said, "I do. It's said that this is the biggest difference between the human race and the other races." The Demon Lord said, "Indeed, this is the biggest difference between the human race and the other races. The meridians of the human body represent enormous treasures. If you can open these treasures, you can obtain endless benefits. That's why the innate human race was so powerful back then. They were so powerful because they were born with the ability to open part of their meridians, which allowed them to grasp unimaginable abilities. That's why the innate human race was so terrifying back then. However, as time passed, the innate human bloodline was constantly diluted, and the number of innate human cultivators who could open their meridians became fewer and fewer, which was one of the main reasons for the decline of the human race. Of course, there were still some cultivators who were able to open their meridians. I heard that your father was already heaven-defying at such a young age. I suspect that the reason why he was so strong was because he had opened the meridians of the human body. Lin Feng pondered for a moment and nodded. His father had indeed opened the meridians of the human body in order to explore the secrets of his body. The human body was a huge treasure, and once one explored it, they would obtain endless benefits. Perhaps this was one of the reasons why his father had risen so quickly. Of course, no one's rise could be due to one reason. There were many other reasons, and Lin Feng's rise was also due to many factors. However, opening the meridians of the human body couldn't be ignored. The demon lord continued. The four extremes I just mentioned are the foundation of opening the meridians of the human body. Your hands are pointing at the sky, and your feet are on the ground. Your hands are touching the sky, and your feet are touching the ground. That's the so-called four extremes. If you want to open the meridians of the human body and search for the treasures of the human body, you have to start from the four extremes. If the meridians of the human body are compared to a huge palace, then the four extremes are the four gates of the palace. If you want to search for the treasures, you have to open the gates first. If you can't even open the gates, then you can forget about searching for the treasures, said Lin Feng. So, I have to open the gates of the four extremes. You can think of it that way, but I prefer to call it the evolution of the four extremes. Let's observe the specific changes of the seedling of the Jianmu tree. I think the seedling wants to help you open the gates of the four extremes, but I don't know if it can do that, said the demon lord. Lin Feng nodded. He couldn't help but look forward to it. Lin Feng was still crazily absorbing the green energy. Originally, Lin Feng hoped that the green energy would be absorbed by him quickly. That way, he could quickly destroy the foundation of the flower of time. But now, Lin Feng was praying that the green vine would release more green energy for the Jianmu tree seedling to absorb. Lin Feng realized something. The Jianmu tree seedling drilled into his flesh and blood, but it didn't devour his flesh and blood. Instead, it fused with his flesh and blood. The Jianmu tree seedling's branches were still growing. Those branches eventually reached Lin Feng's 5 fingers and stopped growing. Those branches fused perfectly with his flesh and blood. Lin Feng felt that his right arm was different, but he didn't know what exactly was different. Lin Feng didn't know. Demon Lord, the Jianmu tree seedling isn't moving, said Lin Feng, using telepathy. The energy here isn't enough for it to continue growing, so it's not moving. Try stretching your hand towards the sky, said the Demon Lord. The hand the Demon Lord was talking about was Lin Feng's right hand, because the Jianmu tree's branches had completely fused with Lin Feng's right hand. Lin Feng followed the Demon Lord's instructions and stretched his right hand towards the sky. Suddenly, an endless amount of energy of the world rushed towards him. Lin Feng was startled. He didn't absorb the energy of the world at all, but the energy was continuously gathering towards him. If he absorbed the energy of the world, how fast would it gather in his body? He didn't know about the other benefits of opening the gates of the 4 extremes, but his cultivation speed would definitely increase crazily. Lin Feng said, "Demon Lord, my arm can actually absorb the energy of the world. It's really amazing," said the Demon Lord. That's the benefit of opening the gates of the 4 extremes. The first benefit, which is also the first treasure, is cultivation. Cultivation is the foundation of a cultivator's advancement. Therefore, after opening the gates of the four extremes, your cultivation speed will greatly increase. What are the other benefits? Asked Lin Feng, pleasantly surprised. Opening the gates of the four extremes was definitely a heaven-defying opportunity. Although he had only opened the gates of the four extremes on his right hand, Lin Feng was still very excited. This had shown him a new path of evolution. It could allow him to greatly increase his overall strength. Said the Demon Lord, "Everyone is different. So after opening the gates of the four extremes, the treasures that can be found in the human body will also be different. Can you be more specific?" asked Lin Feng. Yao Jun was silent for a moment before he said, "There's no harm in telling you about a few treasures in the human body. For example, sealing treasures. Your current 8 divine seals is an extremely powerful sealing technique, but you need to suppress your opponent before you can use it. This kind of sealing technique can last for a long time, but it has a lot of restrictions in battle. If you open up a human body to explore, you might find a new sealing technique. When you fight with others, you don't need to suppress them. You just need to use this sealing technique, and even if your opponent is in peak condition, they might be instantly sealed by you." Chapter 5076. The Demon Lord said, "This is the extraordinary part of opening the human meridian diagram. Of course, if you don't open the human meridian diagram, it won't have any impact on your cultivation. Moreover, there have been so many experts since ancient times, and there are many who haven't opened the human meridian diagram. Those experts' battle strength is also incomparably powerful. However, if you can really open the human meridian diagram, it will naturally be an extremely good supplement for your own body." Lin Feng nodded. In fact, the Demon Lord's words were really too modest, because if he really succeeded in activating the human meridian diagram, his own potential, attack, defense, speed, and so on would be greatly improved. And this kind of improvement was enough to make people crazy. Now that I have opened the first door of the four extremes, I wonder what kind of ability will I awaken when exploring the human meridian diagram. Lin Feng couldn't help but look forward to it. Exploring the human meridian diagram, unearthing his own potential, and awakening extraordinary abilities. How exciting was that? Of course, Lin Feng also knew that now was not the time to explore the human meridian diagram. It would take a certain amount of time to explore the human meridian diagram. And now, Lin Feng didn't have so much time to explore the human meridian diagram. Although the heaven-shaking stone tablet had temporarily suppressed the flower of time, the flower of time was still struggling violently. Maybe at some point, the flower of time would struggle free. At that time, if he hadn't killed the flower of time, the flower of time might be able to complete the reversal. Therefore, even now, he absolutely couldn't be careless. Lin Feng held the epic war spear in his hand and directly swept toward the purple vine. The epic war spear swept over the vine. Suddenly, a huge gap was torn in the vine. Lin Feng's spirit was slightly lifted. He continued to attack. One attack after another. Puff, puff, puff. Accompanied by the sound of tearing, there was a sound. After more than 10 consecutive attacks. Finally, the vine was completely destroyed, and the whole space began to shake violently. Cracking sounds could be heard one after another. The surrounding void began to crack. After seeing this scene, Lin Feng's face couldn't help but change slightly. The foundation of the flower of time was destroyed, and the world inside the flower of time began to collapse. Lin Feng knew that he had to go out quickly at this time. If he didn't go out, he might encounter danger. Lin Feng was about to fly outside. Suddenly, the void trembled slightly. The heaven-shaking steel appeared. A divine light swept out from the heaven-shaking stone tablet. The divine light swept directly onto the rattan's body. The rattan suddenly disappeared without a trace. It was unknown if it was swallowed by the steel. After the rattan disappeared, the steel quickly flew into Lin Feng's body and disappeared. Lin Feng didn't stop. He quickly went outside and waited for Lin Feng to arrive. The flower of time began to collapse. The huge body of the flower of time cracked at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, the flower of time completely died. The petals fell to the ground, and the stamen appeared in sight. The demon lord collected the stamen of the flower of time, and Lin Feng quickly collected the petals. It wasn't good to stay here for a long time. Lin Feng planned to leave quickly, and he also planned to refine the flower of time. Lin Feng really wanted to know if the time flower was really like what the beast lord had said. Could it really make his time Dao reach its maximum level? The Dao of time was one of the top great Daos among the many great Daos. It would be an extremely important matter for Lin Feng. Feng Yarao was still in a deep sleep. Her spirit was very tired. It was estimated that she would need to sleep for a few more days before she could wake up. Therefore, Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry to wake Feng Yarao up now. Letting her have a good rest would play a key role in her spirit recovery. As for the demon lord, after obtaining the stamen of the flower of time, he went completely silent. He didn't know how much the stamen of the flower of time could help the demon lord improve his cultivation base. Lin Feng found a relatively secluded place to cultivate. The petals of the flower of time contained an extremely special energy. This energy, all of it fused into Lin Feng's body. At this time, the magical formation formed by the Tao of time automatically operated. The Tao of time was extremely sensitive to the energy formed by the petals of time, the energy that fused into Lin Feng's body. All of it was devoured by the Tao of time. As the energy was devoured, suddenly, Lin Feng sensed that his time Tao was becoming more and more active. The energy just now was like a special catalyst. When the energy was absorbed by the magical formation formed by the Tao of time, Lin Feng's magical formation began to evolve. Of course, whether the evolution could succeed or not depended on Lin Feng's level of comprehension of the Tao of time. Lin Feng didn't dare to hesitate. He quickly began to comprehend the mystery of the Tao of time. At this time, it was the easiest time for Lin Feng to have an epiphany. Lin Feng sat cross-legged. He tried to have an epiphany of the Tao of time. With the passage of time, Lin Feng found that he had entered a special state. In this special state, Lin Feng's comprehension of the Tao of time, it was increasing by a large margin. This made Lin Feng extremely happy. It seemed that the petals of the flower of time were really useful. The things that he couldn't comprehend before could be easily comprehended with the help of the petals of the flower of time. The petals of the flower of time seemed to contain the great Tao of time. After absorbing that energy, he could comprehend the great Tao of time. Cultivation was without time. In the blink of an eye, 10 days passed. 10 days. Lin Feng's Tao of time went from small success to large success, and then to perfection. The Tao of time continued to make breakthroughs. This made Lin Feng extremely happy. After reaching perfection in the Tao of time, Lin Feng felt that he seemed to be able to transform time and space again. Right now, time and space were flowing 10 times faster than before. After the transformation, time and space would definitely evolve again. However, if he wanted time and space to evolve, in addition to having a deeper understanding of the Tao of time, he also needed some special things. For example, some extremely rare treasures of heaven and earth, or some extremely rare materials, and so on. Those things might be able to help time and space evolve, but it was extremely difficult to find such treasures of heaven and earth. Lin Feng knew this very well. So Lin Feng didn't dare to have too much hope that he would be able to find such things in a short period of time. If he could find such things in the future, Lin Feng would be satisfied. Hey, she's awake. When Lin Feng came out, he found that Feng Yarao had also opened her eyes. After sleeping for a while, Feng Yarao finally woke up. Lin Feng quickly entered time and space. Feng Yarao was looking at the surroundings with a puzzled expression. At that moment, Lin Feng appeared in time and space. After seeing Lin Feng, Feng Yarao was extremely shocked at first, then excitement appeared in her eyes. All these years, she had missed Lin Feng very much. Now, she was finally able to see him again. Chapter 5077. With a beauty in his arms, he was as warm as jade. Feng Yarao was definitely the kind of little vixen that would make people constantly worry about her after parting ways. Now that he was hugging Feng Yarao in his arms, the feeling was too comfortable. Feng Yarao was a person who dared to love and hate, and this might be the reason why Lin Feng liked her so much. Think about it. If you have a lover, you ask your lover, "Do you love me very much?" One of them is more reserved and doesn't answer you. The other person has the same personality as Feng Yarao and then tells you, "Yes, I love you very much, so you must love me well in the future." Do you prefer a woman who is more reserved in front of you, or a woman who expresses her love for you? This question, it was as if he didn't even need to think to know the answer. Feng Yarao's passion and boldness was perhaps the most unforgettable thing. I thought I was going to die. At that time, I thought about a lot of things. I thought about my father and you. I didn't expect that I would actually survive. Feng Yarao said, as she laid in Lin Feng's embrace. Her hands were tightly wrapped around Lin Feng's waist, as if she was afraid of being separated from Lin Feng. Lin Feng could feel Feng Yarao's love for him from her words and actions. This was a love that went deep into her soul, and this love was mutual. Lin Feng rubbed Feng Yarao's head, and then said, "You are my woman, no one can make you leave me." Hearing this, Feng Yarao nodded her head. She had even forgotten when she started to like this embrace so much. Once she was embraced by this embrace, all her worries, it was as if she could forget that this embrace was too warm and comfortable. As the saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. After Lin Feng and Feng Yarao reunited, naturally, they couldn't help but rub their heads together. Lin Feng experienced the experience of a monarch not attending morning court for 3 days, only willing to play with his concubines in the Red Luan, the land of warmth, the tomb of heroes. This sentence was very reasonable, but fortunately, Lin Feng's willpower was strong, so he knew when to do what. Thus, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Lin Feng and Feng Yarao went to look for the fire qilin together with Princess Shuiyao and Little Moon. They were also here. It had been years since they last met. Lin Feng naturally missed them, especially the fire qilin. He had a very close relationship with Lin Feng. Furthermore, in the past, Lin Feng had also learned alchemy from the fire qilin. Lin Feng was able to rise up in a short period of time during the early years of his cultivation. Thus, the fire qilin played a crucial role. Lin Feng's seclusion was on the second peak of the Purple Mountain Range. After coming out of the cave, Lin Feng and Feng Yarao walked towards the outside. Lin Feng didn't forget that Little Rock King was still waiting for him outside. It was just that once the flower of time died, it would die. Thus, Lin Feng chose to refine the flower of time first before meeting up with Little Rock King. If the time was delayed for too long, the flower of time would be wasted. After that, Feng Yarao woke up. When Lin Feng and Feng Yaorao were together, they were in the time-space. Therefore, even though 3 days had passed in the time-space, only 6 hours had passed in the real world. The Little Rock King didn't wait for too long. After Lin Feng and Feng Yaorao came out of the Purple Mountain Range, it caused quite a stir. Many people couldn't help but point at them and discuss spiritedly. The cultivators who had entered the Purple Mountain Range had all fallen, so when they saw Lin Feng and Feng Yaorao come out alive, they were naturally shocked. Little Rock King quickly flew over. Seeing that Feng Yaorao was fine, Little Rock King's face revealed a smile. He said, "I was very worried about you guys before, but seeing that you guys came out safe and sound, I can finally relax." Lin Feng nodded and said, "Let's go and find the Fire Qilin, Princess Shui Yao, and Little Moon." Lin Feng, Little Rock King, and Feng Yaorao didn't stay and quickly left. The cultivators who were watching the show were trying to guess Lin Feng's identity. They were also trying to guess how Lin Feng had brought Feng Yaorao out. Lin Feng naturally didn't know what these cultivators were thinking. Right now, his mind was focused on finding the Fire Qilin, Princess Shui Yao, and Little Moon. After not seeing them for so many years, he wondered how their cultivation had improved. However, whether it was the Fire Qilin or Princess Shui Yao or Little Moon, both of them were extremely talented people and came from the 9 regions world. After coming to the Undying Realm, they must be like fish in water. After cultivating in the ancestral land of the demon race for such a long time, their cultivation must have improved greatly, right? Not long after, Lin Feng inquired about the Fire Qilin. It was mainly because the Fire Qilin was too high profile. Not long after entering the heavenly illusory land, the Fire Qilin had a conflict with the experts of the 4 great immortal sects. At that time, the experts of the 4 great immortal sects led a large group of people to besiege the Fire Qilin. As a result, the Fire Qilin suffered a big loss. However, the Fire Qilin's luck was not bad. Although it was besieged by the experts of the 4 great immortal sects, the Fire Qilin still managed to escape. Later on, the Fire Qilin had a fortuitous encounter in the heavenly illusory land, and its cultivation improved by a lot. Lin Feng knew the Fire Qilin's character too well. This guy was never one to suffer a loss. Therefore, after the Fire Qilin's cultivation improved by a large margin, it wanted to take revenge, so it went to find the cultivators of the 4 great immortal sects. The composition of the cultivators of the 4 great immortal sects was actually quite special. In addition to the cultivators cultivated by the 4 great immortal sects, there were also many cultivators who were attached to the 4 great immortal sects. The 4 great immortal sects were huge, and the disciples inside were also scheming against each other, so they were divided into many small groups. In fact, this kind of thing was very common. Not to mention the disciples of the 4 great immortal sects, even the 7 great ancestral lands of the demon clan were fighting openly and secretly. There were also many dirty things in private. However, one thing was very certain. That was, although they were fighting fiercely on the surface, they were still relatively united when facing against outsiders. It was the same when the 4 great immortal sects dealt with the cultivators of the demon clan. Although they had many dirty things in private, they were united when dealing with the demon clan. The Fire Qilin had been following the cultivators of the 4 great immortal sects. When the cultivators of the 4 great immortal sects went to snatch some opportunities, the Fire Qilin would appear. The Fire Qilin was very good at timing. Generally, it would appear when the cultivators of the 4 great immortal sects were exhausted and had solved all the problems. It was about to enjoy the fruits of victory. So many opportunities of the 4 great immortal sects were snatched by the Fire Qilin. If the cultivators of the 4 great immortal sects dared to resist, the Fire Qilin would not be polite and directly threw all kinds of powerful divine abilities at them. Many experts of the four great immortal sects were killed by the Fire Qilin. The Fire Qilin's continuous crimes attracted the attention of the four great immortal sects. Chapter 5078. The Fire Qilin has always been brave, but the four great immortal sects can't be underestimated. They have a lot of strong cultivators. If the Fire Qilin doesn't get surrounded by the cultivators of the four great immortal sects, he'll be in trouble. Lin Feng said. Feng Yarao said. The Fire Qilin has always liked to make a big fuss, but the people of the four major immortal sects are really abominable. They are very cruel to the cultivators of the demon race. They don't want to leave any land for the demon race to survive. If it wasn't for the 7 great ancestral lands being so strong, the 4 major immortal sects would have launched a large-scale war, and the ancient demon domain would have fallen. Lin Feng agreed with Feng Yaorao's words. It was indeed as Feng Yarao had said. The 4 major immortal sects wanted to destroy the demon race's ancestral land. If they could do this, they would be greatly rewarded by the Heavenly Emperor. However, it was too difficult to do this, especially now that the experts of the demon race's ancestral land had appeared. It was even more difficult to destroy the demon race's ancestral land. Of course, although it was difficult, the 4 major immortal sects were strong. Even if they couldn't destroy the demon race's ancestral land, they wouldn't let the demon race's ancestral land continue to grow. Their mission was to resist and restrain the demon race's ancestral land. If they couldn't do this, the 4 major immortal sects would face the crisis of destruction. The Heavenly Emperor didn't support them to cultivate a few ungrateful forces. Therefore, the 4 great immortal sects kept provoking and waging war against the demon race's ancestral land. Many cultivators from the demon race's ancestral land had died at the hands of the 4 great immortal sects. Of course, the 4 great immortal sects had also lost their lives to the cultivators from the demon race's ancestral land. The reason why the 4 great immortal sects were so aggressive towards the Fire Qilin wasn't just because the Fire Qilin had angered them. There was another crucial factor. The Fire Qilin was a cultivator of the demon race from the 9 continents' great world. As everyone knew, the cultivators of the 9 continents' great world were different from the cultivators of other worlds. The cultivators of this world had greater talent, potential, and luck. Therefore, the cultivators of this world, many cultivators regarded them as heaven's chosen cultivators. Especially the cultivators with great talent, they were valued by many forces. The Fireball Qilin's personality was rather high profile. With great talent and strength, his future was limitless. Therefore, the people from the 4 great immortal sects wanted to kill the Fire Qilin before it fully matured. If it was delayed for a few more years, it would be extremely difficult to kill the Fire Qilin when its strength had completely grown. This point, the cultivators of the 4 major immortal sects had reached a consensus. Therefore, the establishment of the Anti-Fire Qilin Alliance was a matter of course. Lin Feng, Little Rock King, and Feng Yarao searched for the Fire Qilin's whereabouts. This fellow was really good at hiding. After searching for a long time, they still couldn't find him. He didn't know where the Fire Qilin was hiding. That day, Lin Feng and the other 2 heard that a huge stone pagoda had appeared near the jade pool. The stone pagoda was very extraordinary. So many cultivators were heading towards the Lake of Jade. Even the cultivators of the 4 major immortal sects who were searching for the Fire Qilin could no longer be bothered with it. They all headed towards the jade pool to search for opportunities. After hearing about the stone pagoda, Lin Feng, Little Rock King, and Feng Yarao also flew towards the jade pool. Lin Feng knew the Fire Qilin's character too well. The Fire Qilin would definitely go to the jade pool. Of course, Whether or not it would appear depended on the specific situation at the jade pool. The fire Chelan wasn't stupid. If the jade pool was too dangerous, this fellow would probably leave after taking a look. The fire Chelan was very clear about when to show off and when to keep a low profile. When Lin Feng and the other two arrived at the jade pool, a large number of cultivators had already gathered in the area. There were cultivators from the 4 major immortal sects, Demon Clan, and many cultivators from the 4 major immortal sects and Demon Clan. In addition, there were also some itinerant cultivators. The jade pool was an extremely huge pool of water that covered an area of dozens of miles. Ripples of light rippled in the pool. At the center of the pool, there was a huge stone pagoda. Only a part of the stone pagoda was exposed outside. Most of the pagoda was at the bottom of the pool. When he saw the stone pagoda, Lin Feng was also surprised because he felt that the stone pagoda was really extraordinary. Many cultivators tried to get close to the stone pagoda, but when they were about 15 miles away, their bodies fell into the pool. The sky was restricted. Many people were shocked. The stone pagoda had restricted the space within 15 miles. Cultivators couldn't fly in a restricted area, so it was impossible for them to fly to the stone pagoda. Heavens, that's... Suddenly, a cultivator cried out in surprise. The cultivator, who cried out, pointed to the depths of the pool. Everyone looked over, and their expressions changed drastically. Many ferocious beasts were rushing out from the depths of the pool. They didn't know what they were, but they were unbelievably fast. The ferocious beasts in the water quickly swam towards the cultivators who had fallen into the pool. Some cultivators on the shore warned them that powerful ferocious beasts were approaching. The expressions of the cultivators in the pool changed drastically, and they all swam towards the outside. When they were 15 miles away from the stone pagoda, they wanted to soar into the sky and quickly leave the area, but they found that they still couldn't fly. The stone pagoda's range is continuously increasing, a cultivator said. Many people nodded in agreement. The stone pagoda was really terrifying. How far could it restrict the space? The stone pagoda hadn't been in the world for a long time, so it wasn't used to the outside world yet. If the stone pagoda could adapt to the outside world, then the range of the stone pagoda's confinement would continue to increase. At that moment, the ferocious beasts had already reached the cultivators who had fallen into the pool. The cultivators started fighting with the ferocious beasts, but the ferocious beasts were too strong. They directly dragged the cultivators into the water. Not long after, blood splattered everywhere. It was obvious that the cultivators had already died. What powerful, ferocious beasts! If we want to go over, we'll have to rely on powerful ships. Ordinary ships won't be able to withstand the attacks of those ferocious beasts. A cultivator said. Many people agreed with this statement. Ordinary ships definitely wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of those ferocious beasts. Once the ship was destroyed, and the cultivators fell into the pool, they wouldn't be able to fight against those ferocious beasts. At that time, they would definitely die. Later, there will probably be some cultivators taking out some top-notch spirit ships and heading towards the stone pagoda. Lin Feng said. Feng Yarao said, "What about us? What should we do? Should we take our own ship or take someone else's ship?" Lin Feng said, "If we take our own ship, we'll be a big target. It'll be easy for the ferocious beasts to attack us. It's better to take someone else's ship. Those ferocious beasts are definitely intelligent, so they won't easily attack a ship with a lot of people." Little Pun King said, "Right, I think so too." The 3 of them reached an agreement and waited for the cultivators from the major factions to take out their spirit ships. Chapter 50-79. There weren't many top-grade spirit ships that could withstand the attacks of fierce beasts, only 10 in total. Some of them were spirit ships taken out by the demon race cultivators, while some were spirit ships taken out by the cultivators of the four great immortal sects. Now, in the face of benefits, these demon race cultivators and the cultivators of the four great immortal sects temporarily put aside all their grudges. They wanted to make a fortune first. Therefore, the 1,000 immortal stones per person to board the ship was something that they had agreed upon together. The ship owners had a good relationship with their fellow sect members, which was why their attitude was so tough. Some of their fellow cultivators went forward to plead for them, hoping to board the ship for free. But in the end, they were all rejected. Those cultivators began to curse the other party in their hearts. They didn't even care about their friendship. They were just short of cursing the other party's 18 generations of ancestors. The world of cultivators had always been like this. Don't talk about friendship. This was a place where benefits mattered. Therefore, talking about friendship wouldn't work here. If one wanted to board the ship, they would have to obediently pay the immortal stones. These immortal stones naturally weren't a big number for Lin Feng. Lin Feng took out 3,000 immortal stones and boarded a spirit ship with Little Peng King and Feng Yaorao. This spirit ship belonged to a demon race cultivator. However, there weren't only demon race cultivators on board. There were also cultivators from the four great forces. There were also some rogue cultivators and cultivators from the four great forces. After Lin Feng and the other two boarded the ship, they walked towards the cabin. This spirit ship was divided into 5 floors. The construction was quite luxurious. It was a very powerful ship. Lin Feng and the other two rested in the cabin of the spirit ship while many cultivators boarded the spirit ship one after another. There were about 400 people on the floor where Lin Feng and the other two were. Including the cultivators on the other floors, this spirit ship had about 2,000 people. There were also many people on the other spirit ships. The spirit ship didn't have an unlimited number of passengers. When the number of people was about enough, the spirit ships started to move. The cultivators who didn't board the ship in time were quite depressed. They could only continue to wait outside and see if anyone could take out a top-grade spirit ship to carry everyone to the stone tower. Some cultivators came here one after another, but they were the same as the others. They couldn't board a single spirit ship and could only wait for someone to take out a new spirit ship. The cultivators on the ship were excitedly discussing the origin of the stone tower and what kind of good items could be inside. Many people became excited and wanted to obtain the treasures inside right now. I just saw a few people looking in our direction, said Lin Feng. Feng Yaorao said. Little Peng King nodded and asked, "Are they the ones standing at the entrance of the cabin?" "Yes." Feng Yaorao nodded. The Little Rock King replied, "They're from the Immortal Heaven sect. They're enemies, not friends. However, since we're on the spirit ship, they probably won't cause any trouble." "Don't bother with these clowns," Lin Feng said casually. "Uffed." Feng Yaorao chuckled and said, "Those people are all famous people. But now, you're saying that they're clowns. If they knew about this, they would be angered to death. If they die from anger, they'll have one less scourge to worry about. If one day I really cultivate to the point where I can anger a group of experts to death with a single sentence, I'll probably be worshipped by countless people. There will definitely be many people who want to learn this ability from me. I don't even need to do anything. I just need to open my mouth and kill a group of experts. Just thinking about it makes me very excited," Lin Feng said with a smile. "If there's really such an ability, I'll definitely learn it well," Feng Yaorao said. The cultivators quickly left. However, not long after, they turned back. When they returned, they brought a group of cultivators with them. The group of cultivators was led by a young man. When the young man appeared, many people went up to greet him. When she saw him, Feng Yaorao's expression became extremely unsightly. Lin Feng noticed the change in Feng Yarao's expression and couldn't help but ask, "Who's that guy?" "Young Master Xian Yun," Feng Yarao said, as if she was worried that Lin Feng didn't know who young Master Xian Yun was. She added, "His elder brother is young Master Xian Yu of 9 Underworld's Devil Palace." Young Master Xian Yu was very famous. Naturally, everyone knew about him. Everyone knew about him. In fact, young Master Xian Yun was also an extremely terrifying existence. During the Undying Realms 10 Heroes Arena battle, young Master Xian Yu fought his way into the top 10, while young Master Xian Yun was ranked 18th. This was an extremely high ranking, so young Master Xian Yun also successfully obtained the qualifications to cultivate in the Heaven Realm. If young Master Xian Yun had achieved such results in other factions, he would definitely have been written about. However, in 9 Underworld's Devil Palace, young Master Xian Yun didn't receive the best resources. This was because there was still a powerful figure above him. Many of 9 Underworld's Devil Palace's top resources were given to young Master Xian Yu. Naturally, young Master Xian Yun was extremely dissatisfied with this matter, but no matter how dissatisfied he was, there was nothing he could do. After all, young Master Xian Yu was even more heaven-defying. However, young Master Xian Yun wasn't a simple person either. Although he was dissatisfied, he didn't show it. His ability to endure was very strong, and over the years, his relationship with young Master Xian Yu had been quite good. At the very least, their relationship was quite good on the surface. As for whether there were any private conflicts between them, no one knew. When young Master Xian Yu's body had developed a resistance to many of the top resources, young Master Xian Yun thought to himself, "Is it finally my turn?" Just as he was feeling happy, young Master Shui Yu rose to prominence. As a result, those top resources were given to young Master Shui Yu. As a result, young Master Xian Yun was a very unlucky person. He clearly had heaven-defying talent and strength, but he had been ruthlessly trampled by young Master Xian Yu and young Master Shui Yu. As for young Master Xian Yun, Lin Feng's killing intent was extremely strong. When he heard that young Master Xian Yun was spying on Feng Yarao, and that Feng Yarao had to take the risk of escaping into the Purple Mountain Range in the Time Cave to avoid his pursuit, Lin Feng already had the intention to kill young Master Xian Yun. This guy even dared to have designs on Feng Yarao. If he hadn't appeared in time, Feng Yarao would have died. How could Lin Feng let young Master Xian Yun off? Since he hadn't seen this person before, he naturally couldn't avenge Feng Yarao. However, now he actually saw young Master Xian Yun on the spirit ship. Chapter 5080. Many people stood up to greet Xian Yun. Xian Yun's status was extremely high. Although the 9 Underworld's Devil Palace was a Devil Dao faction, it had a close relationship with the Heavenly Emperor. Perhaps because of this, the top disciples of the 9 Underworld's Devil Palace were very popular in the Undying World. Both the righteous and the righteous had to give them face. Xian Yun was naturally one of these people. He was an existence that had connections with both the righteous and the righteous. He was an existence that countless people feared. He had quite a number of followers around him. There were even some beautiful female cultivators following behind him. It seemed that they were all Xian Yun's women. In fact, Xian Yun didn't lack women. The only reason he wanted Feng Yarao was because it was new and exciting. After Feng Yarao rejected him, instead, it aroused Xian Yun's desire to conquer Feng Yarao. It didn't matter if he used force or drugs. As long as he could achieve his goal, Xian Yun had always been unscrupulous. A group of people quickly arrived at Lin Feng's side. Xian Yun looked at Feng Yarao and said, "I really didn't expect that you would be able to come out alive after hiding in the Time Cave. It seems like you obtained a great fortune here, right? Otherwise, How could you have come out alive so smoothly? Feng Yarao looked coldly at Xian Yun and said, "Whether I obtained a great fortune or not, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with you." Xian Yun immediately laughed and said, "Very interesting, very interesting. I like little chilies like you. If you're too obedient, I won't feel much for you. Feng Yarao, if you agree to follow me, I can even make you my concubine. You should seize this opportunity. It's your honor to be able to become my concubine." Lin Feng rolled his eyes when he heard Xian Yun's words. This guy was really full of himself. Where did he get his confidence from? Some of the cultivators in the surroundings began to discuss in whispers. Many people had clearly heard about Xian Yun's previous actions. Now, Feng Yarao was once again surrounded by Xian Yun's group. Feng Yarao had been lucky last time. She had escaped a calamity, but this time she probably wouldn't be able to escape this calamity. Many people couldn't help but look at Feng Yarao with pity. She was such a delicate beauty. He was actually about to be captured by young Master Xian Yun. Everyone knew what would happen if Feng Yarao fell into young Master Xian Yun's hands. If it was in the past, Feng Yarao would naturally be very afraid of young Master Xian Yun. But now, Feng Yarao wasn't afraid of young Master Xian Yun because Lin Feng was by her side. Although she didn't know how strong Lin Feng was, Feng Yarao had heard a lot of legends about Lin Feng. Feng Yarao knew that young Master Xian Yun was very powerful. Moreover, not long ago, Lin Feng had killed the formidable Flower of Time. Feng Yarao was certain that young Master Xian Yun and the others weren't a match for Lin Feng. With Lin Feng protecting her, she naturally didn't need to be afraid of young Master Xian Yun. Therefore, Feng Yarao directly scolded, "Why don't you take a piss and look at your own face? Who the hell are you? You actually dare to peep at your great Aunt me? Do you believe that I won't throw you down to feed the beasts later?" Many people were very surprised. They all knew how strong young Master Xian Yun was. Although Feng Yarao was a cultivator from the 9 provinces, she hadn't cultivated for a long time. It was impossible for her to fight against young Master Xian Yun. Some people also knew the Little Peng King, but even with the Little Peng King's help, they still weren't a match for young Master Xian Yun. As for Lin Feng, they directly ignored him. No one knew who he was. Moreover, Lin Feng was too young. Moreover, he was a human cultivator who had declined long ago. Naturally, they wouldn't pay too much attention to him. The strength of Feng Yarao's side and young Master Xian Yun's side were worlds apart. Even so, Feng Yarao still dared to mock young Master Xian Yun. It was truly unimaginable and inconceivable. Young Master Xian Yun said, "Feng Yarao, you are nothing but a broken shoe. You're not a pure girl. Therefore, you better not be shameless." Hearing young Master Xian Yun call her a broken shoe, Feng Yarao's face instantly turned ugly. Feng Yarao pulled a long face. Feng Yarao and Lin Feng had already had sex a long time ago, but they were really in love. Prince Xian Yun's words were too immoral. Any woman would be extremely angry after hearing this, including Feng Yarao. Lin Feng looked at young Master Xian Yun and said, "Young Master Xian Yun, I won't make things difficult for you. If you jump down yourself, I will let bygones be bygones. However, if you don't, I will cripple you and throw you off the ship." After hearing Lin Feng's words, everyone couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Even young Master Xian Yun was stunned. Clearly, he didn't expect Lin Feng to suddenly say something like this. Next, many of young Master Xian Yun's followers couldn't help but laugh. In those people's eyes, Lin Feng was just making fun of them. There was no need for young Master Xian Yun to take action. If they attacked, they could easily crush Lin Feng to death. The cultivators who were watching the show couldn't help but discuss spiritedly. Many of them said that Lin Feng must be crazy. In the eyes of the spectators, Lin Feng was simply trying to kill young Master Xian Yun. It's actually him. At that moment, a cultivator in the crowd looked at Lin Feng in shock. This was because he recognized Lin Feng's identity. This cultivator was originally in another cabin. When he heard that there was a conflict here, he came over to watch the show. He was a lone cultivator. In the past, he had traveled to many places and had seen Lin Feng once in Little Western Paradise City. The scene of Lin Feng killing the 4 evil monks was still vivid in his mind. At that time, he didn't know Lin Feng's true identity. Everyone only knew that this young master was called Ji, and that he was a top genius of the human race. However, later on, they found out that this young master was the famous Sinner's Blood Emperor, Lin Feng. Although he had only seen Lin Feng once, he knew that this young master was Lin Feng. However, this cultivator immediately recalled Lin Feng's identity. However, this cultivator didn't say anything. Instead, he stood in the crowd and continued to watch the show. At that moment, young Master Xian Yun looked at Lin Feng and said with disdain, "Ignorant fool, who do you think you are? How dare you shout in front of this young master? Men, cut off this kid's dog head for me." Chapter 5081. This person is from the 9 Nether Demon Palace. His name is Zhang Tianma, and his cultivation is also extremely terrifying. If he were to make a move, it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill that human cultivator, a cultivator said, recognizing the other party's identity. After hearing that this person was Zhang Tianma, many people sucked in a breath of cold air. Zhang Tianma was definitely a ruthless person. In fact, there were many ruthless people in the 9 Nether Demon Palace. Each of them had unfathomable strength, and Zhang Tianma was one of the best among them. Although his talent might not be comparable to young Master Xianyu and young Master Shuiyu, his talent was also extremely powerful. Moreover, they had cultivated for a long time, so their accumulation and battle strength were also extremely shocking. Now, after knowing that the person in front of them was Zhang Tianma, many people looked at Lin Feng with pity. In their opinion, Lin Feng would soon die at Zhang Tianma's hands. "Brat, die!" Zhang Tianma looked at Lin Feng with a sinister smile on his face. He punched towards Lin Feng. That terrifying punch contained unimaginable power. When they felt the power of that punch, many people's expressions couldn't help but change, because the power of that punch was indeed terrifying. At this moment, Lin Feng made his move. Lin Feng flicked his finger. Instantly, a sword chi flew out. Puff, accompanied by a tearing sound. That sword chi directly pierced through Zhang Tianma's body. Zhang Tianma's burly body was sent flying. When he fell to the ground, he was already dead. The whole cabin became silent in an instant. Zhang Tianma, such a powerful person, was actually killed in an instant. Shock, emotion, disbelief, and so on and so forth. Everyone's expression was very interesting. Only the 3 of them had a matter-of-fact look on their faces. Little Rock King and Feng Yaorao had 100% trust in Lin Feng. Therefore, they felt that the situation in front of them was too normal. In addition, there was also the cultivator who recognized Lin Feng's identity. When he saw Lin Feng kill Zhang Tianma in an instant, he couldn't help but think to himself, as expected, he expected all of this. To be able to kill Zhang Tianma, your ability is not ordinary. When did such a powerful person like you appear in the human race? Are you from the 9 provinces' great world as well? Young Master Xian Yun looked at Lin Feng with a gloomy expression. he wasn't a brainless cultivator. On the contrary, Zhang Tianma was an extremely smart and patient person. Therefore, when he saw Lin Feng instantly kill Zhang Tianma, young Master Xian Yun knew that Lin Feng was definitely a terrifying existence. It was best not to offend such a person. I don't need to tell you whether or not I'm a cultivator from the 9 provinces. My patience is limited, so you should know what to do now. Lin Feng said. Young Master Xian Yun said, I can apologize to you for what happened earlier. As the saying goes, it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Why don't we each take a step back and treat it as making friends? When everyone saw that young Master Xian Yun had actually chosen to take a step back, they felt that it was unbelievable. This was because those who knew young Master Xian Yun knew what kind of person he was. Young Master Xian Yun had never apologized to anyone before, but now he was actually apologizing to this unknown human young master. This was completely unexpected. It seemed that even young Master Xian Yun knew that this human young master was not to be trifled with. That was why he chose to take a step back. The cultivators who were watching the show all looked at Lin Feng. They didn't know what Lin Feng would do. Most people felt that Lin Feng would make peace with this matter. After all, even if Lin Feng's cultivation was very strong, young Master Xian Yun wasn't weak either. Moreover, young Master Xian Yun had so many followers. Lin Feng only had 3 people on his side. It was naturally very easy to decide what to do. Young Master Xian Yun had already given Lin Feng a way out. Now, it was up to Lin Feng to choose. Lin Feng sneered. You've made a huge mistake, yet you're still acting so self-righteous? You really think too highly of yourself. Young Master Xian Yu and young Master Shui, you don't dare to be so presumptuous in front of me. You can't even compare to young Master Xian Yu and young Master Shui Yu, yet you dare to be so presumptuous in front of me? How laughable and ignorant. When Lin Feng said that, Lin Feng's expression changed. Everyone was extremely shocked because Lin Feng's words were simply too arrogant. Who were young Master Xian Yu and young Master Shui Yu? They were all top-notch existences among the young cultivators of the undying realm. Their cultivation had long been on par with many experts with a strong foundation. They were the absolute geniuses of their era. They suppressed cultivators of the same level to the point that they couldn't raise their heads. But now, Lin Feng actually dared to say that even powerful existences like young Master Xian Yu and young Master Shui, you wouldn't dare to be so presumptuous in front of him. What kind of arrogance did he have to be to dare to say such words? Does that brat know what he's saying? A cultivator asked as he looked at Lin Feng mockingly. Lin Feng was so young. No matter how strong he was, there was still a limit, right? Therefore, no matter how strong Lin Feng was, no one would think that Lin Feng could compete with young Master Xian Yu and young Master Shui Yu. There are more and more cultivators who like to brag these days. You'll get slapped in the face. Another cultivator said, mockingly. Clearly, he was mocking Lin Feng for bragging. Brat, do you know what you're saying? Young Master Xian Yun looked at Lin Feng indifferently. Lin Feng walked step by step toward young Master Xian Yun and said, I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. I'll cripple you right now and throw you down. I want to see what 9 Underworld Devil Palace can do to me. Many people were shocked. After all, Lin Feng wasn't afraid of young Master Xian Yun. In fact, he even dared to provoke 9 Underworld Devil Palace. Lin Feng didn't look like someone with a brain problem. If he was a normal person, he wouldn't have said such a thing. This meant that Lin Feng had absolute confidence in himself. Now, many cultivators felt that they had underestimated Lin Feng. Attack together. Capture him alive. I'll cut him into 1,000 pieces later. Young Master Xian Yun said indifferently. Said Prince Xian Yun indifferently. The others immediately threw themselves at Lin Feng. There were more than 30 cultivators in total, and they were all young Master Xian Yun's followers. Most of them were from 9 Underworld Devil Palace. There were also some cultivators who were affiliated with 9 Underworld Devil Palace. There was no lack of extremely powerful people among them. Now, a group of cultivators charged toward Huang Xiaolong. Lin Feng didn't even bother with them. He continued walking toward young Master Xian Yun. When the cultivators got close to Lin Feng, they couldn't withstand the invisible pressure emitted by Lin Feng. Thump, thump, one cultivator after another. Chapter 5082. Heavens, there are so many experts here, but they can't even withstand the pressure emitted by that young master. That young master didn't deliberately release his pressure, but it's already so strong. If he deliberately released his pressure, how strong would he be? Yeah, he's too strong. It's unbelievable. The surrounding cultivators cried out in alarm when they saw the cultivators kneeling on the ground. Lin Feng hadn't even made a move, but a trace of his pressure was already unbearable for so many experts. If he made a move, it would definitely shock the heavens and earth. The cultivators, kneeling on the ground, looked at Lin Feng in horror. Lin Feng's strength had deeply shocked them. Now, their hearts were filled with endless fear. They were worried that Lin Feng would kill them. Spare us! Spare us! The group of cultivators begged Lin Feng for mercy. If their bodies weren't restrained, they would definitely kowtow to Lin Feng and apologize. These cultivators were usually high and mighty figures with great strength and arrogance, but in front of Lin Feng, they were like stray dogs. Get out! Lin Feng's voice was indifferent as he waved his sleeve. In an instant, the group of cultivators kneeling on the ground were sent flying. Plop, plop. Those people all fell into the pool. Next, the ferocious beasts wandering around the spirit ship were like cats that had smelled blood. They quickly rushed over and attacked the cultivators. One cultivator after another hastily brought out their magic treasures to fight against the ferocious beasts. However, the ferocious beasts were simply too strong. While the cultivators and the beasts were fighting, the cultivators were dragged into the water by the beasts one after another. Blood flowed in the pool. It was obvious that the group of cultivators had died in the pool. Dead. They're all dead. The cultivators outside cried out in alarm. Once they left the spirit ship and entered the pool, there was almost no chance of survival. After all, this was a world where flying was forbidden. Once a cultivator couldn't fly, they would be greatly restricted. Anytime, anywhere. All of them could face the crisis of death. Therefore, until now, none of the cultivators who fell into the pool survived. All of them died under the attacks of the ferocious beasts. They became food for the ferocious beasts. How pitiful! In the cabin, Lin Feng walked towards young Master Xian Yun. It's your turn, Lin Feng said indifferently. Young Master Xian Yun's face was incomparably gloomy. Lin Feng was truly too powerful. He even felt it. Lin Feng could not compare to Xian Yu and Shui Yu. The gap shouldn't be too big. As for him, he was probably no match for Lin Feng. Don't go too far, young Master Xian Yun said in a deep voice. After hearing young Master Xian Yun's words, many people felt a little strange, because a powerful figure like young Master Xian Yun was usually the one who bullied others. When had he ever been bullied by others? But now, young Master Xian Yun actually said something like, "Don't go too far," to someone else. Clearly, young Master Xian Yun was in an extremely bad mood. He had no other choice. That was why he said those words. That was the rule of survival in the world of cultivators. The strong were high and mighty. They dominated everything. The weak, they were destined to be trampled under the feet of the strong. In the world of cultivators, even if one was strong, one shouldn't be too arrogant. One shouldn't bully and humiliate others casually. That was because one didn't know if there was an even stronger person behind the other party. Young Master Xian Yun thought that no one would dare to offend him because of his powerful cultivation, and the Netherworld Devil Palace behind him. Therefore, he could do whatever he wanted. He could do whatever he wanted. However, he didn't expect Feng Yaorao to have such a strong person behind her, Lin Feng. Although he regretted it now, it was too late. When you bully others, have you ever thought of this situation? Lin Feng said indifferently. He sent a palm strike towards young Master Xian Yun. Young Master Xian Yun didn't dare to be careless. He also sent a palm strike towards Lin Feng. Bang! Along with the sound of the violent collision, there was a loud bang. Young Master Xian Yun and Lin Feng collided again. Young Master Xian Yun was sent flying like a kite with a broken string. Many people's eyes nearly popped out when they saw this scene. Young Master Xian Yun wasn't a match for young Master Xian Yu and young Master Shui Yu. However, young Master Xian Yun was also a terrifying existence who could fight against a true immortal. However, in front of Lin Feng, he couldn't even block a single move. This was too unbelievable. What was Lin Feng's cultivation level? He was actually so terrifying. When they thought of Lin Feng's combat strength, young Master Xian Yun, there was a feeling of horror in their hearts. Just you wait. I won't let you off. Young Master Xian Yun looked coldly at Lin Feng. He quickly rushed outside. This guy jumped straight into the pool and swam towards the outside. Young Master Xian Yun jumped in. Damn, it's really young Master Xian Yun. What happened? Why did young Master Xian Yun jump in? The cultivators on the other spirit ships saw young Master Xian Yun jump into the pool. They all had puzzled expressions on their faces. The pool was so dangerous. Jumping in was simply courting death. There must have been a conflict, and the person who had the conflict with young Master Xian Yun must be very powerful. That's why young Master Xian Yun was forced to jump in. At that moment, a cultivator spoke up. Many people couldn't help but nod in agreement when they heard what the cultivator said. This point of view, it was acknowledged by everyone. Come quickly and let me wait for the ship. I'll definitely reward you handsomely when the time comes. Young Master Xian Yun shouted loudly, wanting the other ship owners to save him. However, the other ship owners weren't fools. They couldn't imagine how powerful the person who could force young Master Xian Yun to jump off the ship was. If they saved young Master Xian Yun, wouldn't they offend that mysterious expert? If that expert bore a grudge against them, they might even lose their lives. Therefore, when the other ship owners heard young Master Xian Yun's cry for help, not only did they not save young Master Xian Yun, but they also looked like they were watching a show. Young Master Xian Yun's expression turned extremely ugly when he saw that no ship owners came to save him. At that moment, terrifying beasts quickly pounced in young Master Xian Yun's direction. Those beasts are coming. I'm afraid young Master Xian Yun is dead for sure.